defense tech is usually building technologies for the use by the military. Defense tech can also be dual use, which is I will build technology that the military can use, but also other people.
How is the defense tech industry getting impacted by AI?
Defense is both defense and offense. So you have to decide which one you'd want to work with, but a military doesn't care.
Say if I'm a startup in Pakistan and I want to sell, or say I want to use AI for military, right? Where do you see the applications of physical AI in military that are just still more doable now?
Alliances happened after Cold War. And I think there's another kind of a Cold War kind of happening right now. And I think the real Cold War that's happening is China versus US. When you have a force that can land in another country with helicopters and abduct the president and take it out in hours, what will this naval carrier do jo ek hafte mein pahunchega?
It feels like the world's heading towards a big padda, right? Hey Bilal, thank you so much for taking the time. Really appreciate the fact that you've, in your busy trip, managed to take some small time out for our conversation. I've been meaning to get in touch for a while because obviously I follow you and I've been following your journey for a few years online, but I'm also very curious to learn from you about a few things that I feel like you're one of the few people in the world and few Pakistanis who specialize in. But before we get into any of that stuff, I wanted to get a better sense of your journey. So you were born and raised in Karachi, right?
Karachi, Gulshan Iqbal.
Gulshan Iqbal, और फिर?
Gulshan Iqbal, I went to school here, St. Pat's.
Okay.
Several cousins who went to Karachi Grammar School in the same year.
Okay.
And two of us actually ended up then at MIT together. But anyways, I went from here to study in the United States. I did my undergrad there at a small college called College of Worcester. But actually there were quite a few people from Karachi and Pakistan in general. And then and studied chemistry and mathematics and then moved to MIT and did my PhD. That was not the plan. Plan was, we'll get the undergrad and then we'll just work, and realize after doing my undergrad thesis, this research thing is pretty cool. So I ended up doing research and I worked with the Nobel laureate, the 1995 Nobel laureate in chemistry. I did my PhD with him and I thought I would go teach, but then I realized that what I really enjoy most is building products and products that come to life.
How'd you realize that?
Yeah, growing up, I always had these posters of Einstein in my room. And so I really thought science was the way to change the world. And then as you go and do science, you realize that there's actually things that happen after the first discovery is made. And science is extremely important because you gotta, break through the unknown. But when the unknown is done, then you have to turn that into something that people can use. And, as somebody who's thinking about, what is the next challenge in science, what is the next question that hasn't been answered, and you start to train yourself to think about that. One of the things that emerges in front of you is, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I studying that particular field? Why do I want to address that particular question? My work had a lot of relevance to climate change and environmental monitoring and what was going on in the world from a climate point of view. And I felt there are three ways to solve that problem. One is you discover something in science that nobody ever knows, and that changes the world. That, hey, climate change ko aise affect karna hai, we can take carbon dioxide and do this with it. And that felt like, to me, it felt like that was far away. The second thing was policy, that you can make policy changes. So scientists can be very involved. And my own PhD advisor, part of the Nobel Prize winning activity was to focus on chlorofluorocarbons, come up with the Montreal Protocol, and the whole world signed on to it, and that was a big impact. And the third thing was that you build things that people use that change their carbon footprint and so on. And I decided, the third one is more like me. That was the bug you also get at MIT. When you're at a place like this, you're surrounded by people around you who are building, who are, starting companies, who have this idea, even a small idea can become big. So your ambition can be big, but you can start small. I felt like that's my calling.
Oh wow. Okay, that's very well articulated as well. And then what happened? So what product did you then start?
I started a company called GO2 Technologies, and that was, not to get too technical here, but that was doing an advanced high temperature composites for catalytic applications. In the United States in 1970s, we had this significant smog problem. And we realized that part of the problem was caused by the pollution coming out of vehicles. Okay. And so the Clean Air Act was passed in 1970. And the idea was that all the pollution out of the cars needs to be cleaned up. And back then, this thing called catalytic converter was invented, which probably every car here uses as well.
Okay.
Basically, muffler ke aage ek cheez lagi hoti hai, and that all the gases that are coming out, that would be a combustion engine giving out black smoke. That gets converted into cleaned up and oxidizes in this catalytic environment. But that thing was invented in the 1970s. Okay. And obviously the regulations had tightened in the US every year and also in the US, in Europe. And the technology was reaching its limits. And there was a reason and a need to get to the next curve, development curve. And, there was so I studied that problem as an entrepreneur, that, this is a real problem. Every car in the world is a potential customer. Mm-hmm. That's, millions and millions of cars around the world. And I realized that there's actually a new class of materials that can completely transform that catalytic reactions. And it was being used for space technology.
Okay.
So it was, simply stated, the space shuttle tiles that coat the outside of the space shuttle going back and forth, that were doing insulation work. When you look at the material itself and the internal characteristics, you realize, this thing, if done right, could be used here. So it was really taking technology from one domain and applying it to another. And in doing so, figuring out how to take the cost down by at least 1,000x. So that you can take something that is only applicable to space shuttles to put it onto every car. So that's what I built the company around, and that technology was acquired by Corning Incorporated 4.5 years later.
Oh wow, excellent. And then now that you were an exited founder, you decided to become a VC?
Yeah, so what happened was I was not planning to be a VC. I was planning to be what they used to call, there was a term called serial founder.
Acha, okay,
and I was like a founder who starts companies after companies. Yeah. Now, the reality is most serial founders have one startup that is a success and then they eat cereal for the rest of their life. But I thought that's what I'd do, and I had a clear idea of how to do it. I didn't know what I wanted to build. And the clear idea in my mind was, my first company was taking a very interesting technology and then saying, what's the right applications for it, and finding this very interesting application. And I said, the next time I do a company, I'm going to do it in reverse, where it's not going to be a technology first and then figuring out what the right applications for that technology are. Because that's how most university startups are. We've invented this new molecule, we've discovered this new thing, and now let's see where can we apply it.
Yeah.
I said, the next time I'm going to find an interesting problem that is an important problem, and important to the world, but also important business-wise. And then I'm going to figure out how to solve that problem using whatever the available technologies are. And so I thought I would do that when a bunch of VC firms came calling. And, one of those firms was based in Boston, one of the largest firms now, called General Catalyst. And they had wanted to invest in my company, but they weren't able to. But they said, why don't you join us? And initially, I thought I'd go there and hang out and, see lots of interesting ideas. And, it's almost like being in a, in an incubation area where you're hearing lots of ideas and getting, motivated and inspired. But I realized what I'm really good at is the 0 to 1 stage. What I really enjoy is going from the unknown to something that becomes very real. And what I didn't enjoy as much, or maybe I wasn't very good at it, was the scaling part.
Something that exists, you just make it bigger,
Yeah, and even if you start something, like my own company, we started with nothing. We didn't even have a PowerPoint. We just were talking about it, and then we started working, and then we got, me and my co-founder, we got a little bit of money, and then we said, let's hire our first engineer and a first technician, and then blah, blah, blah. We started growing. We got our first customers, we got our first partners, and built out a small lab, and then a slightly bigger lab. And but then by the time we were 25, 30 people, right? Like it was like, okay, who's managing the floor and who's managing this, and reviews every year and all of that. And I was like, yeah, this is great, but I miss when we were really hacking away at ideas. So when I realized, okay, venture capital, at least early stage venture capital, that's a lot. And frankly, it's a special skill set in the sense that most people don't enjoy that very early nebulous stage where things are a little unclear. You don't really know what questions to ask. You certainly don't have the answers. There's a lot more uncertainty around success. You may spend a lot of time spinning up cycles and then completely wasting them because at the end you decide, yeah, this area is not interesting enough. There's a technical word for it, which is in the US we call it sausage making. Not many people enjoy sausage making. People like eating sausages. Yeah. And that was the same idea here. It's what goes into cooking. Not a lot of people enjoy that. Yeah. People enjoy the cooked food.
The product, yeah.
And there's a lot of people who they love yahan ki nihari achhi hai, wahan ki achhi hai, right? But the idea is, do you enjoy picking out the meat that goes into the nihari? Do you enjoy what spices and where the spices come from, and how much to add and when to add and all of that stuff? How to improve on it, right? I mean, just taking that as a dish, and it's one of my favorite foods. That's why I brought it up. But it's been improved upon for probably hundreds of years. Right? And some people have done better with it and some people haven't. And there are many flavors to it. It doesn't mean that they're bad. It's just you may like nihari a little bit differently than I do. And take any food you like. That is the beauty of startup world. Like there's no one answer, but your flavor might be preferred by a lot more people. And that's got me into this whole idea of like what I really enjoy is this early stage venture. And that's been my career now for 17 years.
So that's what made you want to be an investor as opposed to being a serial founder? Because
yeah, that allowed me to say, okay, how can I do this many times over? The things that I've learned, things that I enjoy doing, things that I seem to be good at, how do I do it again and again and again? So one way to do that is to keep starting companies, right? But the other way is to say, when you start a company, you also realize it's the founders who start the companies, right?
Yeah.
And you can't be the founder who deserts you.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you and I start a company, we're going to do this. And then 2 years later, I'm like, okay, great, now it's happening.
Office.
Now you take it from here. Yeah. Now you may feel like, wow, this is great. Like now I'm the solo boss. Maybe that's possible. But most people would be, this guy just quit on. And I said, there's actually another role, and that role is that of a venture capitalist. Like if I invest in your company very early on, and you give me 20% of the company, that's like a real co-founding equity that you're giving. Money is commodity, right? Like money you can get maybe from friends, relatives, some rich business guy, some government, whoever. There are many ways to get money. What you're really getting from a VC is the advice, the help, the roll up your sleeves and get to work. And that equity is earned. It's not just bought.
Isn't that what VCs are quite criticized all over the world for not actually doing that, right? Like not being the value that they claim to add, like not adding it actually, yeah.
There's shitty VCs and there's good VCs.
Yeah, that's the meme, right?
But there's also a lot of shitty entrepreneurs and good entrepreneurs.
Fair enough,
I agree with you completely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of VCs that are glorified banks. There's a lot of VCs who are sharks. That's fine, but they're not the best VCs. I mean, nobody would say that about the best VCs at the top firms in the country.
True. And that's what you would say is what founders should look for when they say raising capital from someone, is like what kind of commitments do you think they should seek or look for?
There's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The base is at the end of the day, if you're the founder, you're gonna build the company, right?
Yeah, obviously.
So the most important thing in all of this is you.
Right.
Who are you? What your capabilities are? Also, what your ability to understand your deficits are, so you can go and complement those, and so on. An entrepreneur is somebody who finds an opportunity that other people don't see, and then builds a commercial enterprise on it. Okay? It could be based around some technological innovation that other people don't know about. It could be based around a business model innovation that other people haven't seen. It could be identification of a need that nobody else realizes. It's a need that we all have, but nobody realizes that if you service it, it'll be good. Think of Uber and Lyft, right? There was nothing dramatic about it. They was taxis. It's just that you had to go out to the street and stop a taxi. And just the idea that it'll come to your house, pick you up and take you, change the world. So you're the most important. And then as you build up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first one is that you might need some capital to get going. Right? You might
Yeah.
need to pay yourself and for your family to be able to put food on the table. You might need to hire the next person and so on. The money is an important thing. And then it is, okay, if I'm going to be able to get money, what else can I get with it? Who can I get the money from? And you want to get it from, obviously, not only value add people, but people with values. Right? You want people who are going to be good people, and you're not going to be always looking around your back to make sure that they're not stabbing you back, right? And so you want good partners. And I think the most interesting thing that I've observed about venture capital in the US is the idea that success of a VC is not just one time becoming lucky. That, I invested in Google and now I don't have to do. There was a lot of angel investors who were early investors in Google.
Yeah.
And they've been fine, but most people don't know their names. There are firms like Sequoia, Kleiner Perkins, and others who are top firms in Silicon Valley. People know them because they've done it consistently again and again and again. And that again and again and again comes from actually being able to add value to these companies. That's what, when I compete for deals, that's what I try to sell. Right? Like, money is money. We never talk about money.
Yeah.
It's always like, ठीक है.
That's just given.
Well, maybe they don't, तुम भी दे रहे हो. Right?
Right.
But why should they pick me over you? It's all about what you've done for others, how you stood up, what have you built, how do you build. It's not only what I know. It's like what I am interested in learning to be able to help you.
Yeah.
Right? And that is a constant curiosity and hard work. I've started a new VC firm, and these are core values that we're building into it. Clearly, I saw something missing in VC. As VC has transformed over the years, and I realized that there's white space for me to go build something different.
Talk to me more about that, right? Like, what made you, number one, start RedGlass? You were at Lux for a very long time, and then you've now started RedGlass. And then you've also mentioned this VC is now changing or has changed recently. What is it that has changed, and what do you hope to achieve through RedGlass? Like, how are you tackling the opportunity differently now?
So there's a lot of things happening in tech broadly. You may have heard of this thing called artificial intelligence. So I think AI is changing the game.
Yeah.
It is, a lot of people my generation think of it as, when internet came. I left Karachi to go to the US to study in 1995. November 1994 was the Netscape moment, right?
Yeah.
Netscape IPO. One way to think about this is that this is the next internet. I think this is bigger than the internet. This is more like the steam engine. We don't talk about steam engine very much because it was a long time ago, but steam engine had a bigger impact on the world than the internet did. That's fine. What internet did, with all the networking technologies and communication technologies and chips that were used for Pentium 5, 3, 4, 5, blah blah blah, all that stuff, right? Data centers, and at the end of the day, what it did was reduce the cost of communication to zero. Right? So when I went to the US, it was cost about $5 a minute to call my mom.
Yeah.
I was working at the college cafeteria and in the custodial services cleaning toilets at $4.65 an hour. So for 1 hour of cleaning toilets meant I could talk to my parents for 1 minute. Okay? Which meant that, and I had to make money to also pay for books and this and that or whatever. So I would talk to my parents like 5-6 minutes a month. Right? That's the life I had to lead. And many of us did who went in that era to the US. Today, fast forward, the internet technologies are such that I can do video calling for free to my parents while I'm driving from point A to point B, right?
And high quality for.
And you don't pay anything for it, effectively.
Yeah.
Right? That is just in 30 years, right? In fact, it's already been there for 10 years, so only 20 years. Now, what is the AI doing? So AI, when people think of AI, again, they go back to, there's the semiconductor tech, and then there's the algorithms, and then there's the application layer, and ML ops and all that, data centers. The reality is what AI is doing, the fundamental, in my opinion, what AI is doing is reducing the cost of intelligence to zero. Like right now, when you start a company, when I started a company, I could only hire so many smart engineers, so many scientists or so many engineers. Why? Because it costs money, right? The better the engineer, the more you have to pay, right? AI is effectively saying, I can reduce that cost asymptotically to zero. So right now you can get a whole bunch of tasks that a simple associate used to do. You can just do it by yourself. Right? Fast forward 20 years, what will that look like? Like Claude until 2 days ago was only used for code. Now they have Claude Work.
Yeah.
Right?
Work, yeah.
And just 2 days ago. So now you can use it, not just you. Even if you don't know coding.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a lawyer. I mean, legal AI is huge.
It's huge.
And who would have thought that the first jobs at risk would be the lawyer's jobs, right? But it's huge because a lot of work, like even if I worked in a PhD at a Nobel laureate's lab or you at a top law firm, like my assumption is 80-90% of the work you do is repeat work.
It is.
Right? Somebody has to do it, but it's repeat work. And when you write a contract up, 90% of that contract is standard boilerplate stuff.
Yeah.
Now, it's not boilerplate that every contract is the same, but it is boilerplate, right? When you write an essay, online podcast, or or a blog post, I mean, it's like 90% is the same. Even what I'm talking about, there's a whole chunk of this is like usual stuff. VCs take risks. VCs are value add. They're big VCs, small VCs. AI can do all of this, right? There'll be at best a few things that I might say in this entire conversation that might be unique. The rest of it could have been done by somebody else. And I think that is what AI is doing. Now take that and apply it to every industry. So one reason to start the fun was to say, yeah, there's a fundamentally new game in town. And every time a new game in town has arrived, so when Web 2.0 arrived, which was just networking tools and networking as a moat or your network as a moat, a new firm emerged called RedGlass Ventures, world-class VC firm, right? Then it was SaaS, like, oh, you're not going to go to a store and buy a box that had Microsoft Windows in it or Microsoft Office in it. You're going to subscribe online and you're going to pay on a monthly basis. And for everything, it's going to be a monthly basis.
Yeah.
And there's an entire economics around it. A new firm called Emergence came out, and it's a top firm now. Right? When fintech came around, that fintech is no longer about just building software for banks. It's like a completely changing Stripe and this and that. Ribbit Capital came around, right? And then when it was crypto, Paradigm came around. And I think in enterprise AI, there's some firms coming out, and then this whole area of physical AI, which is AI interacting with the physical world, things that you and I consume, industrial products, manufactured products, automotive, drugs and healthcare and energy and national security and defense. AI is going to rip through all of those industries, and there are particular nuances to those industries that I think will allow for a world-class new venture firm to arrive. So that's what RedGlass Ventures is. In addition to that, it's also very focused on early stage, because I think even in venture capital, the firms that I grew up admiring have all become very, very large, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. Eventually you grow up. And eventually when you grow up, you stop paying attention to the little kid, right? Like every big business that we know of, right? Where, now it's like a massive headquarters. You have to stand outside to get a meeting, whatever. At one point used to be a little dhaba, right? And somebody still has to start the next dhaba to get the next innovation, because the big guys are not going to do it. I mean, the classic innovator's dilemma.
No, absolutely. And with RedGlass, like you mentioned physical AI, and that's just gotten me thinking as well. And one of the more important things that I want to talk to you about is defense tech as well, because we don't usually get to talk about it much. Do you see problem with like distribution? So say, for example, if I'm building an AI thing, for me, easiest is say completely a software thing, which I can easily distribute to everyone's phones, computers, etc. When you talk about physical AI, now you're talking about like there being some level of infrastructure that needs to be in existence, right? So if AI is going to be part of my car needs to have some sort of support. I mean, that's how I'm thinking. Like, do you see that is just going to take longer? That's just going to be harder to do?
Okay. In technology space, name top 5 to 10 companies that first come to your mind.
Top 5 to 10 companies? Yeah. So FANG, straight.
Facebook, Meta,
Facebook,
Apple, Amazon,
Nvidia now. I mean, it used to be Netflix, but Nvidia now. Nvidia now. Google, OpenAI, of course now. Claude, Tesla. SpaceX.
Okay. So I asked you for 8 to 10 companies. You mentioned 8 or 10 companies. Did you realize that at least half of them are physical AI companies?
That's true, actually. Yeah. Now that I think about it.
There's your answer, right? So the reality is कि अगर तुम पाकिस्तान में बैठो and you say कि what are the most interesting businesses, and you might say कि यार आदमजी insurance हो गई, हबीब बैंक हो गया, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're like, but what about everything else? Like, what about the biggest car distributor in the country? I mean, traffic is horrendous because somebody's selling cars, somebody's importing cars.
Yeah.
Like, there's a business in cars.
Of course, yeah.
Right? The entire enterprise software business globally is about $4 trillion.
Entire enterprise software.
Enterprise software business.
That's
when you
what
sell enterprise
NVIDIA's
software to people, it's about $4 trillion of revenues.
That's NVIDIA's market cap.
Yeah, NVIDIA is selling chips.
That's
NVIDIA is not selling, I mean, the software comes with it, but the software industry, like Salesforce, and all of this other software that you use. Just automotive industry is about $4 trillion. The semiconductor industry, think of the pharmaceutical industry, think of your food and agriculture industry.
Oh, those are huge.
Right? So the same thing that automotive company, like Tesla is almost $1 trillion company, right? The next automotive company is like 30 billion. So you would not have named GM, BMW back in the day. You wouldn't have included them. Why are you including Tesla? What's the difference between a Tesla and all the other car companies? On a per car market cap basis, Tesla is about 10 to 40x size, right? BMW sells more cars than Tesla.
BYD sells more cars than Tesla.
So what is the difference? The difference is software. And I think that's what is happening. That things that we consumed, that we thought had nothing to do with software, are all going to be about software, right? We used to buy a camera, point and shoot.
Yeah.
Right? It was just like, open it up, take a picture and then take a picture. And all you had to do was just this, right?
Yeah.
And now it's like complete digital magic, right? It can make you look beautiful, even if you're not, right? And now you know that you can take a photo, and I'm sure all your listeners, you go online and you're like, uski lighting change kar do, uska background change kar do, ye kar do, vagara, vagara, all of that stuff. Like, all of this will be on your phones, on your cameras in real time, right? It already is many of the things are already there. Maybe we don't even know how to use many of the features that are already available to us on the standard iPhone camera, right? That's the magic. Like right now you have 3 cameras these 3 cameras 10 years ago would have been massive cameras. Now they're like small cameras.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that 10 years later, it'll be just iPhones, if we're lucky. Okay, simple, everything is happening. Right? All the voice mixing will be all digital, and everything will be happening in real time. There'll be like 20 different channels that you'll be, okay, Bilal said something, let me enhance the bird chirping sound in the back, or let me actually bring that down. All of that can be done post factum and by the AI. You don't even have to tell them how to do it. You'll just do it. AI will automatically do that for you if you tell it what to do. Like if we're sitting here and you wanted to give the sense to people that your nature mein baithe hue hain, then you will just say that, like enhance the nature effects. So jo kabbon ki awazein aa rahi hain, that'll be enhanced. It may actually add the sounds of crows, even if it wasn't there.
We can do all of that today as well. Yeah. We're already there. Yeah,
this is all in things that are not computers, iPhones, like beyond the screen. Now you think of everything that you consume, like chair pe baithe hain.
Yeah.
Like we are used to having this as a standard seat. Imagine there was intelligence in it. When I sit on it, in your cars, you see it, right?
The setting changes.
The setting changes based on the key that you use.
Yeah.
Now imagine the same thing on every chair. My father's sitting here, make it a certain way. When I'm sitting here, make it a certain way. Mere kamar mein dard hai, to do it a different way. All of that can happen. I think the fundamental question you have is an important one. These are more complex markets to sell into. But we know how to sell into them. We just have to figure out how to sell technology with them. We know since eternity, man has known how to sell a shoe to you. How do I now sell you a shoe, which is an intelligent and smart shoe? The shoe that I'm wearing, right now I'm just chilling, so it should be loose, right? If I now suddenly decide, I'm going to go running, I shouldn't have to, right now I can just tighten my shoe, right? But it should be just, I press a button or I just speak into it.
Like in Back to the Future.
Yeah, why not? Back to the Future showed that 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe more than 30 years ago. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Right? Remember, Back to the Future 2, I think, has a dog that's being walked by a drone. So when I saw that before I even left the US, for the US, right? So it was at least 30 years ago. At that point, I didn't even notice it. It felt like science fiction, right? I didn't know what a drone was. I didn't know that until like 12, 13, 15 years ago. What is a drone? And now you see that drone in every wedding. And by the way, it's the same drone that movie had 35 years ago, walking the dog, right? I think it's science fiction becoming a reality is the most incredible thing, and the speed at which it's happening. Just fascinating. You know, I was at a dinner at Mark Andreessen's house many years ago, like 4 or 5 years ago. And he said something that was, see, I said crows, and they started their own conference there.
And right when you went on Mark Andreessen's...
The crows came out. He said something that I will not forget, and it was fascinating. There was a small group of us, and he said, this is the greatest show on earth. What's happening in technology is the greatest show on earth. And we, as VCs, have the front row seats to it. It's the most privileged place to be. And it's awe-inspiring, and it's humbling. Right? Like, the world changes every day. Just before I came on this trip, I had to go to Jordan, Qatar, UAE, and stuff. But just before that, my father-in-law was visiting, who's this Palestinian man who's 90 years old now. Right? I mean, 90 years ago, the world looked very different.
Yeah.
He sat with me in front of a Waymo and took a ride. And to him, it was magic. There's a car driving from my house to the nearby shopping mall with no driver in the driving seat. The steering wheel is there, it's turning and all of that.
That is magic if you think about it. I mean, what else was magic back then? Magic is this, right?
Yeah, we used to, I mean, you know, all of us grew up on, you know, in the magical carpet, and you sit on it and the carpet flew and took you places, right? Yeah. These are the stories, you know, Alif Lela Lela, whatever, right? Yeah. These are stories from back then. That is becoming reality. Like, it is so close to reality. Yeah. Right? It may not be flying, but certainly I'm sitting in a car, right? Now, the way to think about AI is very simple. Right now, when I came here, there was a driver who drove me here. In some ways, it's already a autonomous car. Right? For me, it's an autonomous car because somebody else is driving. Yeah. But you're paying somebody, you're taking the risk that this person is a good driver. You're taking the risk that they know the ways around. Right? All of that can change. I just sit in a car and I say, take me to this address. Yeah. You know, and boom. In fact, right now, what I had to do was pull out the Google address you gave me, blah, blah, blah. I wouldn't have to do that. I would just say, look at my address, my 10 o'clock meeting, take me to my 10 o'clock meeting. And this vehicle would just take me. Or soon you just have that instruction set in part of your workflow and you won't even have to say anything. It's all agentic AI that's doing that. Get to the car. Yeah, agents will be doing this work. Yeah. Here they go. When I was paying $5 a minute and only talking to my mom for 5 minutes, there are other rich people who were able to do international calls and all kinds of stuff, right? Yeah, without any limitations. So that feature set was not available to poor people, right? And that became available to all of us. Now, the poorest person can probably, well, maybe not the poorest person, let's not exaggerate, but poor people can get access to a phone and through that phone get access to communication, and they can make video calls for free to somebody else, right? That, I think, is the same thing that's going to happen. Right now, having the access to a car and a driver and all that is available to only a few people. But in the future, that'll be available to everybody. No, that's fascinating, right? And so within that, now what I want to better understand is, like, how is the defense tech industry getting impacted by AI, right? There's no way, because number one... All right, we're taking a sharp right turn. Let's do it. Sharp right turn. Let's do it. Number one, they have insane amount of resources at their disposal. This is just my thesis sitting outside completely, and like, I don't know about this industry much, but they probably get the best technology first because they can afford to as well. Number two... That's not true, but okay. Okay, we'll better understand. So let's get into it, right? So if I'm thinking about AI and I'm thinking about defense tech, so let me just break down what I think defense tech is, right? So I feel like typically defense would have 3 components. Number one would be just getting a better intelligence and surveillance type of component, number one. Number two would be being able to analyze when, say, you are at war or there's this defense needs. And number three would be to actually take the action, right? And I would imagine AI would obviously cut across all 3.
It would help you with surveillance. It would help you with better intelligence. It would help you with better analytics and better decision making. And of course, it would obviously help you with better. Is this a correct framework? Correct framing of?
So yes, generally. So let me back up a little bit. First, what is defense?
Yeah.
Defense is both defense and offense. So you have to decide which one you want to work with, but a military doesn't care. Defense tech is usually building technologies for the use by the military. Defense tech can also be dual use, which is I will build technology that the military can use, but also other people.
Yeah.
What is the easiest example of a defense tech? Microsoft Office.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Right? I mean, you use Microsoft Office.
Yeah.
जो military commander है वो भी military Microsoft Office use कर रहा है.
Okay, fine.
Like on his laptop, if he has to do Excel file or if he has to send an email,
It's Microsoft.
उसने अपना तो, they've not generated their own software to write emails, right? They may have security layers on top, but at the end of the day, they're using some commercially available software in some ways, right, for simple tasks. So that's the dual use. Okay, the third thing that happens is that the customer set is buying things that have more bells and whistles associated. So you can either take your standard product and you say, I can slap on more bells and whistles. Or you say, I actually created a product that had all the bells and whistles, and if I take some of these bells and whistles off, I can give it to other people. Now, you said, observe, so there's this thing called OODA loops. Have you heard about these OODA loops? So I talk to my kids all the time. OODA loops is observe, orient, decide, act. Okay. All of us should learn that, especially if you live in a place like Karachi or any big city, you should have. Like, koi bhi, you're sitting right here.
Yeah.
And imagine we just heard gunfire, right? We first have to observe कि यार gunfire हुआ है, किसी की गाड़ी में से फटफटी आवाज नहीं आ रही, right? Like this is gunfire. Now people who haven't ever know what a gunfire is, they wouldn't know. मगर कराची वालों को हर एक को पता है जो gunfire क्या होती है, right? The second thing is you orient. कहाँ से आ रही है? घर के बाहर से आ रही है, घर के अंदर से आ रही है, पीछे से आ रही है. What you decide कि what's happening, and then you orient yourself. Then you decide कि करना क्या है. Do you and I simply roll down on the ground? Do we run out this side? Do we run out that side? Do we hide inside the house? Do we go into the basement? Do we go to the chat? We decide, and then we act. Go do it. Now these cycles take time, right? If you are a military person, if you are a security person, you decide very quickly. अगर कोई यहाँ पे security guard होता, he or she, if they're trained well, their job, like the people who protect, the presidents or whatnot, is to within seconds. You've seen how they hover around the president. They're ready to take the bullet on their shoulders, but protect the president. They take him out. उनकी पूरी planning होती है. ये गाड़ी यहाँ होगी, ये होगी, वो होगी, right? So all of the technologies that go into feeding that is important. Now it's not just for individual purposes. The same thing could be happening. What is happening in another part of the world? What is happening in Venezuela or Iran? What impact does it have on us? What decisions do we make? Not all decisions are made in seconds, but probably Pakistan had to make certain decisions. Are we going to give a press release, either supporting the US or not supporting the US? Yeah. These decisions have to be made, and you can have technologies to aid you, support you, and all that, right? You don't have to just rely on humans. कि वहाँ से कुछ चिट्ठी लेके आ रहा है, बताएगा हमें, हम बैठ के decision.
समझ गए.
Okay. The second thing I want to say is that you said that military has the best technology. That is not true.
Okay.
Certainly not true in developed parts of the world.
Really? Okay.
Okay. Maybe it's true here because you're buying technology. Military has more money to buy technology and maybe buy some talent that is hard to get. And it used to be that way.
Yeah.
So it used to be that we would build the most advanced technologies for the military, because military would fund it through national research labs and other things. Think of internet was the last thing that happened that way, by the way. Internet was developed for the military. Then it would become available to commercial sector when they would declassify it a little bit, but it was still very expensive. So early internet was available to some universities and then big businesses, right? And only several years later, when it would be commoditized, would you and I get access to it. Right? GPS. Military had access to it. Then some people had access to it. And eventually, iPhone 4 is when you and I got easy access to. Before that, you could buy a TomTom or something, right?
Yeah.
So it used to be that way, that the military had the technology first, the most advanced, they would build a radar system, giant radar for putting on, whatever. And then eventually it would get available to giant ships, so private, if you had a big yacht, you could put on a radar on it. And then eventually the radar would become small enough कि आपकी गाड़ी में जा सकता है, so it'll give you detection के, you're about to hit the pole in front of you, right? But all that has changed in the last 30 years. I think internet may have been the last thing that happened that way.
Okay.
Now, you and I had the most advanced processing capabilities of iPhone and all the touch screen and everything available to us,
At the same time as anybody
No,
else.
consumers had it first. Remember, businesses were still, yaar, इनमें security नहीं है, ये नहीं है, वो नहीं है, we will still use Blackberries, right? So when the iPhone was available to the consumer, your business guys were still using a BlackBerry because businesses would not allow an iPhone to be used.
Yeah.
And the military did not allow the technology to come in for 7 years later. A 4-star general in the military got their first iPhone 7 years after the first consumer bought it.
Wow. Okay.
And this keeps happening again and again. The most advanced AI is available to you, OpenAI. Military doesn't have access to OpenAI.
What?
Yeah,
Even for nothing?
of course. The most advanced researchers in AI are not sitting in military.
They're sitting,
They're sitting at OpenAI, they're sitting at Anthropic, and they're building the next big model. They're trying to create $1 trillion of value. They're not trying to sell some shitty software to military that might give them $100-200 million. Right? Military still in the US, I mean, in my context of military is mostly US in that regard. Military is still spending most of their money on buying like sheet metal. Right? Tanks, bombs, drones. The intelligence in it is rather relatively
It's
you know,
not the big
dated.
cost component in it.
The whole defense tech movement in the US started off because there was this realization कि यार ये क्या हो रहा? Our military is using shitty old technology. When you compare that to our adversaries, and for US the foreign adversaries are China and
Russia,
others,
yeah.
they were like, those guys are getting much advanced technologies because they forced their companies to work with them. US military could not force its company. US military was trying to do work with Google, and the Google decided, this is like 10 years ago or so, Google decided, nahin yaar, we don't want to work with the military. Whether it's woke, anti-woke, it doesn't matter. But the point was Google walked away from a big contract, right? We don't want to develop software for the military. And at that point, Google was one of the top tech companies.
Yeah.
Right? When that happened, it created a movement. कि यार ये somebody has to provide technology to the military. Right? I mean, we should be building technology. I mean, again, if you believe in democracy and you believe that America is a democracy and you believe that American military works under the democratic elected government and blah, 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 right? Then you're like, okay, then we need to support our military and we need to make sure they have the best advanced technologies available. That is not taking away anything from the fact that, U.S. military has made tremendous blunders around the world, blah, blah, blah.
Course,
It's
yeah.
not taking, this is not a political debate. The question is, it could be any military. It could be a Pakistani military. If you decide that your military is important to our existence, then you should be providing the best available technology to that military, right? They are sending people to die on your behalf. You want to minimize that, right? You want to minimize their losses. You want to maximize their ability to win. You want to maximize their ability to enforce, their power internally, externally, to be able to do things that are needed, right? Now, how the decision making gets done, that's a political conversation.
Yeah.
My point is, that was not happening, and till today, that is hard to do, right? That's not to say military does not have good technology, but I do not believe that they have the most cutting edge technology. Yeah, cutting edge startups are sending satellites in space to do manufacturing in space and bringing things back. Military doesn't have that capability. Now, military wants to, right? I mean, there's things that military has that commercial government may not have developed. They may not need that. Like if something is, loitering drones, if it's not needed, right now, China does 650,000 drones displays. These are loitering drones, right? This is coordinated warfare getting ready, right? तुम बताओ अगर 650,000 drones were to attack Karachi simultaneously, how would you protect yourself? कौन सा missile फेंकोगे उसको? What kind of jamming would you need to do? I mean, maybe you can jam every signal everywhere, maybe. But many of these drone systems are no longer relying on external communications. Right? There's advanced technologies coming out that are basically saying, inertial navigation and whatnot that are not GPS determined in any way, right? And all of this is being developed for Ukraine, but it's a lot of commercial companies that are developing it for Ukraine.
Yeah.
This is not coming out of Lockheed Martin or Raytheon. This is coming out of startups. So I think that is the defense tech business. And people who are working in defense tech, a small percentage of those companies are saying, I only want to develop for defense, because it's a large enough market, it's a very unique market, and I don't care about anything else. I'll sell it to the US government, US military, but then also sell it to our affiliated or allied nations and blah, blah, blah. Most companies who are working in defense tech are saying, we're going to build for defense because defense can be an early customer because they have need and whatnot. And then we will use that and apply it elsewhere.
And then just become dual use.
Whether it's a cybersecurity tool, whether it's an offensive, electronic communications and electronic warfare, jamming, whatever, signals intelligence tools or AI tools. Weapon systems, if you shoot a ballistic missile, the ballistic missile trajectory is, all of us did that in high school. कि यहाँ से missile launch किया, उसकी क्या trajectory होगी, इस speed पे जा रहा है, and you can do that. That's what ballistic missiles are. Once you launch them, you have no control over them. They just go and land wherever they land. Right? And those things are then easy to take out. That's why you have the Patriot missile batteries in Qatar, or the Israeli defense, the Iron Dome or whatever. All that is, when you can detect a weapon aa raha hai, you can within seconds do some calculation and say कि यहाँ होगा तो उस trajectory के ऊपर अपना missile भेजो उसको निकालने के लिए, right? That's a different problem if you have 10,000 of them coming, right? But what if these things don't take a ballistic missile trajectory? If they're non-deterministic courses, right?
Which is what the hypersonic
That's what the hypersonics are doing. So now you need both to build the hypersonic weapon systems and then to detect them and then to track them and then to be able to take them down. You need different systems. They move at extremely fast pace and blah, blah, blah. So you need advanced technologies, and startups are building that.
This episode is brought to you by Kiss Bazaar. Kiss Bazaar is the leading BNPL platform of Pakistan. वहाँ पे जाके आप अपने लिए installments पे काफ़ी सारे products ले सकते हैं, चाहे आप freelancer हो, एक early professional हो या entrepreneur हो. आप अपनी startup के लिए अपने लिए ACs, TV, fridge, phones, laptop, electric bikes, whatever it is, आप अपने लिए easy installments पे ले सकते हैं. So please go check out www.kissbazaar.pk. Okay. Now, in terms of no, this is what's fascinating me the most, and it feels like the world's heading towards a big phadda, right? Everyone, and suddenly, we suddenly find ourselves relevant as Pakistanis, and we spend quite a bit of money. Actually, it's quite a bit for us, but in the grand scheme of things, our military budget is $8 billion a year. Which is not much, right? Which is less than what NYPD's budget is. But then we still have to have an air force, have everything else ready, and have people right next to us who would like to attack us every now and then. Now, where do you think the new war frontiers are? Is it I just don't see tanks being used much. अभी इतनी सारी लड़ाइयाँ हो रही हैं, and you don't really see tanks. That artillery and tank thing is just seems like the stuff of the past. It feels like all is about the Air Force now.
Look, I'm not a military strategist. Two thoughts on it. One, there is a dramatic shifting of alliances happening globally. And Pakistan is very actively participating in that. And I think that shifting of alliances has a lot to do with technology, not just people. In past, it used to be that Pakistan apni forces bhej raha hai, Rwanda, this, that, whatever, right? Okay, that's fine. Now it's a lot more around where's the technology going and what kind of sharing will take place. And, this is nothing new. This used to happen. I remember reading social studies books in high school. The non-aligned movement and the, North American whatever treaty was, and, Russia ki India ke saath jo relationships thi and all that. That's alliances happened after Cold War. And I think there's another kind of a Cold War kind of happening right now. And I think the real Cold War that's happening is China versus US. And everybody else is just aligning, right? It's basically that's what it is. Right? Everything else is secondary. Israel is also secondary. Israel is, allied with the US, and everybody else is like, okay, unko jo technology mil rahi hai, wo hame bhi chahiye, aur hame chahiye to kaise aayegi, kahan se aayegi, and also can you really trust ke you buy everything American and then one day they put the switch off and now your technology doesn't work, so you have to have, and this is not pro-US, anti-US, UK, US are very close allies. But when it comes to, for example, intelligence, they cannot use the same technologies. Because for them it is कि यार अगर वो हमने वही technology use की and somebody figures out a way to shut down the US intelligence efforts, then our things will be shut off too. So we need to have redundancy. So they develop their own, right? So that's one thing that's happening. The shifting alliances. The second thing is, okay, My assumption is, given the first wars ever happened in the world, they were land wars. Okay? Then came the naval wars.
Yeah.
यार एक और dimension हो जाती है,
सही है.
right? And then came the Air Force. कि यार हम तो, I think the First World War was the first time it started, and the Second World War it really dominated, right? And now there's also the space wars.
Yeah,
right. There's another dimension altogether.
Exactly. Yeah. There's the cyber and then there's space.
Yeah,
right. There's
so,
two new dimensions there.
So I think, I hope there's no grand padda coming, right?
Yeah.
I hope, and if you talk to the non-crazy defense tech people in Silicon Valley, they will tell you that part of the reason to develop all the technology is to essentially deter war, right? Like, why do you think के offices के बाहर security guards बैठे होते हैं gun लेके?
Yeah.
Why? They're not sitting there to start shooting.
Yeah.
It's deterrence.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, don't come here. But effectively, you're also saying, kahin aur chale jao. Right? Don't come to my house, but go to next door neighbor. He doesn't have the security guard.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what these countries are kind of doing, and everybody else is like, yeah, this is a problem. We don't want to become the client state or, the state where the warfare is fought on behalf of somebody else, which was happening. US, Russia, Turkey, Syria mein drame ho rahe hain, and Syria ki tabahi ho rahi hai. And, and I'm sure Pakistan was like, we don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
We don't want Afghan war to trickle into this. We don't want India to, come from the other side. We have no idea what's going to happen in Iran and happens from there. Like we have to, we have to protect our borders. Assuming that you consider borders protection to be an important thing. Now, there's probably extreme pacifists and all that. They have a different point of view. But to the extent you believe in a country and you believe in a nation and you believe in borders, you have to protect those borders.
Yeah.
And I think you have to give them the technology to do that. And yes, it is going to be a technology play. That does not mean human beings go away. That does not mean that there may not be tanks. There's military strategies that play out a certain way. We will still need a navy, but it won't be the slow-moving navy. Like if you have a frigate ship, हमारे पास भी 4 बड़ी ships हैं, but they move at like 5 miles an hour. They're like sitting ducks,
Yeah.
right? The United States has that problem, let alone Pakistan or another country. United States, our military, massive ships, and given nuclear weapons there to launch, right? And they do cruise missiles out of ships. But if you were to move, you may remember that for the last 30 years, कि यार US ने अपनी Air Force carrier को move किया है,
That's the first signal. That's the first signal they gave, yeah.
But it used to be US Air Force carrier is moving towards the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
एक हफ्ते में पहुंचेगा. The hell? Like in a world where we have nuclear weapons available to us, all kinds of problems that we can create using, electronic warfare and so on. And, when you have a force that can land in another country with helicopters and abduct the president and take it out in hours, what will this naval carrier do jo ek hafte mein pahunchega? Right? That's the thing people are trying to change. So how do we change that? We used to, America used to rely on that by saying, we have submarines that are always around Russia or China. They're just hiding. Nobody knows where they are. And they're there. Okay, but now they can be detected using advanced technology. So now they have to move back a little bit. This is nothing new. This is publicly available information. When US Navy does war games, actually US Navy fails compared to Chinese Navy. Their missiles have a longer range to reach US Navy ships than our missiles.
Okay.
So we'll be taken out. So now we're coming up with new technologies, distributed systems, autonomous systems, right? एक बड़ी शिप खड़ी हुई है, वो एक स्पीड बोट आई और उसने उसके साइड में हल में दे मारी, and 80 people die, and this happened in for the US ships. You just take that out, take the humans out of the equation, right? Have distributed systems.
So, but is this where you see most, like, say, so if I want to say, like, extract some value from the space, right?
As an investor.
As an investor, or say as a founder.
Right.
Say I want to build something. I like this space a lot. Or say I'm working on something which I feel like could have dual use, and one of the use could be. Now, what are the areas that you see are actually like available for disruption? Like, where do you think?
Again, using the US as a context, you have to think about the capability that you want to deliver. Right? The way the US military thinks is we buy capabilities, that we have the capacity of doing that. How we buy it whether we buy a hardware from you and run it ourselves, or we give the contract to you, you run it on our behalf, or we buy it but you run it. Those are all like mechanistic things.
Yeah.
Important thing is this a capability that we want? So when US was really involved in land wars in the Middle East, we wanted a lot of capabilities that were land-based, right? So we had forward Air Force bases, forward military bases. We could launch small drones from there. The drones didn't have to fly very far, and they were land-based, right? We had autonomous, if we wanted technology, we wanted autonomous tanks and so on and so forth, right? Okay, now that we're preparing potentially for conflict in Pacific Ocean, it's not a land-based conflict. Like Taiwan पे अगर war हुई, so it's not going to be कि मैं छोटा सा drone है, pilot है, right? We need these drones to go long distances. We need drones that are like floating drones. So these are like sail drones and whatnot. I mean, I invested in that. That's the idea, right? Like now it's a different kind of a warfare that we're planning for. So the capabilities we need are different. Now in the middle of that, if we realize कि यार there's satellite jamming things, we have to work on that. जहां वॉर होती है तो पहली चीज आती है कि यार Elon Musk, can you sell some Starlinks to these guys, right? So I'm sure countries around the world are now trying to figure out how do we jam Starlink communications. Even Pakistan maybe.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, one of the things that happens, well, वो 9-10 Muharram में हो या जो भी हो कि जी कोई cell phone connection नहीं चल रहा, right?
Yeah.
Like for whatever reasons, I don't fully understand that. Okay. So then if you were to plan an uprising, you would be like, alternate communication systems. Now, it's a Tom and Jerry wala situation hai na? It's a cat and mouse game.
Yeah.
Like you come up with an alternative communications technology, somebody comes up with ways to, kill that, and you keep developing. And by the way, technology moves that way. This is how interesting things get developed, right? Ek internet hota tha, you connected to your computer, then the Wi-Fi came around. फिर Wi-Fi में हुआ कि यार वो, jam हो जाती है तो different channels आए, जिसका Wi-Fi देखो 2.5 gigahertz है, and 5 gigahertz है, and then people are like, Wi-Fi is not good enough, and then the Bluetooth came around, and then it was like, okay, we can just do hopping and connected devices that there's no central system. There can be no internet, and we can just share information with each other, and it goes through. And military has those types of things, right? You don't have internet available elsewhere. So how do you communicate with your soldiers? Blue platoon yahan hai, red platoon yahan hai, how are they communicating with each other? Remember, we used to have people die in friendly fire all the time, right? वहाँ से गन की आवाजें आ रही हैं तो उस पर अटैक कर दिया, पता नहीं चला वो हमारे ही बंदे थे.
Yeah.
Right? It used to happen all the time. US attacking Pakistani forces in Afghanistan or vice versa. So we now have to have better communication technologies to use and prevent that from happening. But those technologies can also be used by other political activists in whatever other parts of the world. So that's what's happening, right? So my point is that, you've got to develop these technologies because there's a lot of good that comes out of them, right? Like a communication technology does not rely on a centralized connections protocol. Can be very good, for example, for hikers, climbers, and all kinds of things, right? People who go out into the wild and sailors and whatnot. But of course, it can also be used for nefarious purposes. When we're developing technology as a defense tech investor, one of the things that becomes incumbent on you is to understand what are you getting yourself into. And, having your own morality and values become very important because the technology you're developing can be used for bad things.
Yeah.
And you asked this question, K, if I'm looking at, as a founder investor, where should I invest? All of this is available to you. Right? The future of warfare is going to be very multidimensional. It is going to be, I see, Amir Hussain, who's a Pakistani, in the US, a brilliant analyst on military defense technologies and AI and a bunch of other things, really smart guy. He actually wrote an article a few years back. We called it hyper war, right? The hyper war is where systems are going to not require humans very much. It's going to be in communication sciences. It's going to be in weapon systems. It's going to be, आपके tank आ रहे हैं लेकिन उसमें बंदे नहीं.
Oh.
Right? That's great. You have ships who are going out, boats that are carrying weapon systems, but they don't have human beings on board. Planes. You have satellite space. That's, rods of God or whatever they're called that they're dropping. And now, all of this is to say none of this I hope ever happens. Right? I hope there's no war.
Yeah, of course.
Right? But you have to prepare for the possibility of war and use strength as a deterrence. right? Like if Pakistan, जो अभी, India से conflict हुआ recently, and the fact that our Air Force did really well, and at least what I have understood sitting in the US is that the Pakistan outperformed even the expectations of Pakistanis from Pakistani military.
Yeah.
As a Pakistani, great. The fact that we did that probably delays, if not cancels, indefinitely, further aggressive actions.
That's true.
From another state.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And that is a good thing, right? Now, the negative of that is, okay, when you have the hard power of that sort isn't available to you, then you do other things, right? Then you penetrate, you create internal cells, you have,
The proxy war, yeah.
You have proxy wars, you create disturbance and political dissidence and all kinds of stuff, right? US does that all over the world.
Yeah.
I think we should expect the same thing happening here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're the ones doing that elsewhere, right?
Yeah, it is already happening here. Like Balochistan is in complete unrest. You have TTP, etc., and they're all supported. Like it's not like
every conflict of that sort you see, and you see like 10,000 Toyota Hilux trucks. इनके पैसे कहाँ से आए? Who's paying for this? How did these guys end up with these Hilux trucks?
Exactly.
Right?
So it's not.
But the point is that all of this is going to be using interesting technologies. And those technologies are being provided by, companies. And not all of those companies are like some defense companies.
They're like
the GPS जिसने बनाया था, he may or may not have envisioned that they'll be used on every drone to drop weapon systems on, people sitting in stadiums, right? That it could be used for that. It was just a technology that was being used. So you have to have then systems in place to make sure that you continue to push technology forward, and you think about who you give access to and how you give access to them.
No, this is quite fascinating, and especially this bit of insight, right? So, if I'm a startup in Pakistan and I want to sell, or say I want to use AI for a military, or use that for military, right? Where do you see the applications of physical AI in military that are just still more doable
Everywhere.
now?
Yeah, there's I took a Waymo from my house to a mall, driving through all kinds of traffic and all kinds of things. That thing is not available to military right now. Military doesn't have a tank that can navigate all complex terrains and whatnot. No, they're developing it. And frankly, some of the commercial companies are working on it with them, but they don't have it right now.
And typically, how does it work? How do you sell to any military in the world?
Depends on the military. In the US, there is the commanders in the field who basically you work with them to figure out what are the capabilities that are required. So they may say that, we really love this system that detects, incoming drones faster and goes after them. Okay, so we want a system that does that, जैसे Patriot missile battery होती है, there's a system that's sitting here, it automatically detects, में radar भी हैं और वगैरह, and they find out that systems are coming, they find them far away, and then they actually have some kind of think of it as an infrared system or a other kind of an electronic warfare project that basically shuts those systems down, directed energy or whatever. There's a whole bunch of systems you can build. Okay. But military commanders in the field cannot buy stuff. They then goes to procurement office, which basically says, I will set the requirements, because they don't want कि आप military commander हैं, आपको ये चीज़ चाहिए और आपने वो चीज़ कही जो मैं आपका भाई हूँ, तो मेरी जो company जो बना रही है वही मुझे चाहिए, right? You can't do that. At least that's how the process is set up. So you can't do this. Okay? Even if you know exactly what you want, and you may not be trying to do nepotism or anything like that, but to prevent the idea that you could go and buy something from a friend of yours, they say, okay, you tell me what the capabilities you require. I'll turn that into a requirements document. Okay, we need a system. US military needs a system that does this, this, and this, and everybody else can compete for it. So can your brother's company.
Yeah.
Right? So they build the requirements doc, and they are the buyers. But they're not the ones with money. They have to go then to the Congress to ask for money. So they basically go to Congress and they say, कि ये हमने requirements लिखी हैं because we're preparing for this warfare potential here, and some things are public and some things are not. You need to give us so many hundreds of millions of dollars or billions of dollars to go buy this. So there's like what is considered a checks and balances, but unfortunately that also becomes very bureaucratic and all. So that's what is happening. That's the primary way you sell. So a company that starts off in the US, a defense tech company, needs to understand that your user, which is the commanders in the field, your buyer, which is a procurement office of the military, and your payer, which is the US Congress, are three different animals. They're different entities. These ones, you need to have commander, you have to military guys who can work with these guys to figure out what is the need. So in Pakistan, for example, if somebody comes in and goes and spends time with the military generals and commanders, कि यार हमारी, jet में हमारा ये capability होनी चाहिए, or this kind of a missile system, or this kind of a navigation system, whatever, that's fine. But then in the US at least, the buyer is not field marshal cannot write a check and say कि खरीद लो, right? The buyer is a procurement office that says to make sure, as I said, nepotism and all that nahi ho raha and so on, and the quality management. So you have to understand how to then navigate that bureaucracy, which is a Pentagon bureaucracy. So look at it, okay, this is in the field, generals in the field, this is a Pentagon bureaucracy. And the third is lobbying, which is the US Congress. So to do a company in defense tech requires you to not only build the technology, but know how to sell. It is a muscle that you have to build. And I'm sure even if you're selling to Pakistan, you have to figure out how to do that, or anywhere else in the world. And then most of these companies, once they figure out how to sell in the US, then go and sell it to UK or other countries. So they have to figure out how to do that to Middle East and so on. But it is no different than enterprise software. I mean, it's but it's the same way. You can't just, consumer mein to you build an app and you put it on an app store or you launch ads.
Yeah, that's it.
But that's not how you sell enterprise software. You don't put a soap ad on a billboard and be like, buy my software for your tax purposes.
Yeah.
You have to figure out how to sell. You have to know who the right people are. You have to find the right buyer. You have to find the right channels. You have the right distribution. That's what you do. The same way in military, you have to figure out how to sell to them. The problem has been in the past that people used to not work with the military. Number one, it was very hard to sell. It used to take very long. So the sales cycles were very long and people were like, I'll run out of money before I can get the sale. The second thing was that there is, when you have very complex buying systems, the best technologies don't always win, right? I may have a better technology, but you may know how to sell better. So if you were to say head to heads, my likelihood of you winning out is higher. And the third thing was a lot of times you build something so complex for the military that was too expensive for anybody else. And military is it's still a capped market. Now, the new generation of defense tech companies are unpeeling that. They're reducing the sales cycles. In the military, as somebody who's invested in defense tech in the past, we've been doing work for 10 years now. Jahan jate hain, we tell the military again and again and again, hammer them that this is a big problem. And they've now started to do more. Things have improved. And we are, building systems that are more commercially oriented to say, okay, you should use it. And especially the more AI you get, the better it gets.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
Less
That's
of this is a battle-hardened, this kind of a steel that is impenetrable by bullets and stuff. Like, no, this is software. And you can use the software too. We just put it on an Amazon's, government network cluster, and now you have access to it. And also founders are learning how to deal with the, moral issues associated with that.
No, that's also, obviously that's important, and that's something that I would imagine would vary from people to people. But in terms of the companies that you've seen, what are the interesting technologies that you're excited about? Like in the
defense,
which would have a good application in defense as well.
Yeah, look, so number one, there's a lot, but first and foremost is obviously anything to do with autonomy.
Yeah. Okay.
Like autonomous systems are everywhere. The car, the tanks, they're all going to have implications in our real world. Autonomy and automation. The second thing that's happening is robotics.
Okay.
Like you may have read somewhere that, US discovered that we don't have enough missiles. We don't have enough bombs, so to say, right?
Really?
Yeah.
I would imagine they'd have the most bombs.
So most, but we were also using a lot of them to send to Ukraine. And suddenly we ran out of this, that, or whatever. And so we're like, okay, we need to do this. And as we do this, we need to build, robotic systems to do that. Like, we don't have enough people that can build bombs. I mean, the magnitude at which US has to work is much larger, right? It's not like you can just hire 1,000, 2,000 people. When the Second World War happened, every factory stopped working and basically we're building planes and weapon systems, right? That's the scale that you need, but we can't do that. We can't build, we don't have shipyards that are building a lot of ships.
Yeah.
Right? So how are we going to build these autonomous drones? So a lot of US companies that are modern, advanced, Navy-based autonomous boat companies and so on, one of the things they're doing is building out the manufacturing ecosystem, right? We don't build enough parts. Right? It's a whole supply chain problem, right? We don't build enough boats because we don't have enough people who know how to build boats. So we say we need to train robots to build boats. Okay, but to build robots to build boats, we need to build robots. Well, the robots require not only intelligence, but also we don't have companies that make screws and actuators and sensors. So they all used to come from China. Well, we can't have a robot that's building military-grade weapon systems with sensors and actuators that are coming from China. So you have to figure that out. And so there's a lot of innovation stack in there that's being developed. And a lot of companies are going after that and doing interesting things. Another area that I'm super excited about is cybersecurity. And cybersecurity that applies to industrial cybersecurity. I'm on the board of a company called Nozomi Networks that does industrial cybersecurity for critical assets and not just military. That's a small part of their business. It's actually your power plants, your milk chiller plants, your manufacturing facilities. Those are under attack, right? One way for me to kill a lot of people in the city is to shut down electricity for a long period of time. Like, log hospital mein mar jayenge.
Nahi, sahi baat hai.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not sure how protected our utilities are against cyber attacks. Now, one way that people used to do that was to say, okay, we have air gap systems.
Okay.
Meaning no knowledge goes back and forth. You know what was the most air gap system? The Iran nuclear enrichment facility, right? And somehow Israel and US found a way to penetrate even that system and put a worm in there and shut down their system, and 60% of their centrifuges blew up. Right?
That could be a day zero virus as well, right?
Yeah, but day zero stuff can be transmitted and can be put onto your power grid.
Yeah.
Right? Your power grid, how do you produce power? You have a bunch of motors that are running, right?
If you just make them run faster, they'll just
make one faster than the other, and suddenly the whole thing falls apart. I mean, we've done those experiments in high school, right? Like you put a motor that's running, uski thodi si speed, angular momentum, वगैरह change कर दो, the whole thing blows up. And that's what they did with the centrifuges, right? Just change it a little bit at a time.
Even in Venezuela, there was a huge power outbreak, right?
Everywhere. Ukraine, this was a daily occurrence, right? The Russians were practicing on Ukraine. But those are areas. Now, that is going to be an interesting thing. Now, when you buy an F-35, let's assume F-35 costs $1 billion. You probably buy another $1 billion, $2 billion worth of cybersecurity posture to protect all the technologies that are in F-35. So when US sells an F-35 to Japan, number one, it can't sell it easily because it says, Japan, you can't protect it, so we can't give it to you. We can't have F-35s, so much technology, or trillions of dollars that we've spent, end up in the hands of the Chinese or something, right? So we have to protect it. I mean, you've seen they have self-destruct systems and all kinds of stuff. That's why even when they sell F-35 to Saudis or whatever, they'll probably degrade them, right? Take some of the stuff out. Because they're aware that some of the technologies will get into the hands of other countries and whatnot. So those countries had to build a cybersecurity posture to be able to even get the weapon systems. And I think that's, you have to build that. I don't know what Pakistan does. Like when hum jo tayyare bech rahe hain, like the planes
GF-17s, yeah.
Like, I'm sure if these planes are very good, somebody's trying to figure out how to bring them down, right? And the other thing that's happening is in the future, a lot of this is going to be autonomous. Right? We grew up with these stories of ye Air Commodore or वगैरह, इन्होंने ये इतने तैयारे गिराए, in this 1971 की jang or 65 की jang and whatnot, and इन्होंने ये sorties की और ऐसे left guy, right guy, इतने बम. In the future, it's going to be a computer. And remember, this is just like, I don't know if you remember, there's an amazing documentary online called The Thinking Game, and I recommend everybody to watch it. It's about Demis Hassabis, who's a DeepMind founder. And he talks about, many years ago, he grew up when he was a kid, he saw, I think it was called Deep Blue, which was the IBM's computer that played chess against
with Gary Kasparov.
Right? Yeah, and then he played chess, and his computer, DeepMind, played chess and won chess championships and beat all the chess champions. And then he played this Chinese game of Go. Right? It's a much more complex game, and it's and played against this, and he didn't win, and then eventually he started winning. And one of the things he says in that is, okay, that was the first time he noticed that the machine was doing things that human beings would never do. Right? The human beings would consider it either wrong or too risky to do. But the machines would do it. Because the machines could do calculations, either because it could do calculations and say, okay, yes, it looks very scary, but it's not. It's a little bit like driving in Karachi. A normal American guy would not make certain moves, but every Karachi driver makes those moves.
100%,
okay?
yeah.
मैं सीधा जा रहा हूँ, वो मोटरसाइकिल वाला ऐसे कट कर रहा है, right? And you're like, पागल हो गए हो क्या? बस उसको पता है कि there's a high likelihood ये बंदा रुक जाएगा, right? So he's making calculated moves that normal person wouldn't, because his machine, AI in his machine knows, okay, this works. So the same way, in the DeepMind playing Go, that happened, right? Now, the same thing has happened in aircraft and autonomous aircraft pilots that are doing with your dogfighting hoti hai. There's autonomous systems that are now available to go against pilots. So, एक seat में एक pilot बैठा हुआ है, world class pilot, whatever, and he's doing certain moves, dogfighting, and then there's a machine on the other side, and the machine won out every single time. Why? Because the machine would do things that the pilot would say, "Hey, this is khudkashi hai. This is like, I will probably die, so let me not make
also,
that
you
move."
have anatomical like limitations, right? Like कितनी बार मैं plane को घुमा के खुद भी रह सकता हूँ, dizzy नहीं होऊंगा.
That too. But there's also like, and then there's this thing, कि यार, if the plane blows up, what's the big deal?
Yeah. I'm alive somewhere. Self-preservation is not a high motivating factor.
Like when I'm driving a car, I'm in the car, I have a different kind of self-preservation ideas than, driving a remote-controlled car in a game. टक्कर मारी, टूट जाएगी, चलो नहीं आ जाएगी, कोई बात
नहीं. पर उसमें drones हैं तो सही है. Drones can already do it,
right?
But
drones, again, it goes back to capabilities, right? So the capabilities are कितना distance जाना है, किस किस्म की movements करनी है, कितना payload carry करना है, किस type का payload carry करना है. All that stuff matters, right? So now if you read reports of Iran, कि यार, they are like drones circling around and and doing real-time surveillance of people at all times. Like Iran is a much bigger country, let's say, than Gaza was. So Gaza drones didn't have to go very far, like Israeli drones. So Iranian drones have to cover lots of ground. So what do? Pakistan ka jo border hai, I mean, it's got two borders on both sides. They have to be protected, and it's a pretty long borders because the shape hai, it's an elongated shape, right? So protecting that requires a different kind of a thing. The U.S. has a huge border system. So Anduril, one of the companies that Lux had invested in, built these, Donald Trump and his first Trump was talking about building a wall. And they basically came to him and said, "Kyari, a wall, I mean, Tika, I know you're a construction type guy, but there's technology available." So then they built these sentry systems, which were basically guard towers, right? And these towers have radar systems, these are advanced radar systems that look for any movement. And then they have autonomous systems that if they detect a movement, immediately they identify where it is, high resolution cameras that pinpoint and look at that to figure out, okay, is this a farmer working in the field or people trying to cross the border? And then they have signals so that they can send it all to the border patrol, okay, yari, this is exact coordinates you need to go to, okay, there are people who are crossing that. And all of that is automated, solar powered, battery powered, sitting in the middle of nowhere in Texas or Arizona or something, right? And so I think that's, you will, चौकियां बनाई हुई होती थी around the border, all that is thing of the past, right? I mean, I'm sure even for Pakistan, like, don't rely on some guy with the durbeen.
I think we are quite heavily relying on guys with durbeens.
Maybe, but no, that's an opportunity.
We have drones as well, right?
I mean, that's an opportunity. Like I saw for the first time, and I'm turning 50 this year. This is the first time that I saw, well, actually I've seen periodically before, but the first time I saw everybody कि यार seat belt लगाओ.
क्योंकि वो cameras आ गए ना.
Policeman से कोई नहीं डरता. कैमरे से सब डरता है.
क्यों पुलिस वाले को तो मैं दे दूंगा 100 रुपए, 200 रुपए, 500 रुपए मैक्स देके वो हो जाएगा.
What is it? This is AI.
Yeah, this is AI. 100%. आपके घर पे आएगा.
It may not be the most sophisticated AI, but this is AI.
Yeah.
Right? One of my uncles got one of those photos. He's sitting there with no seatbelt and he got whatever, 5,000-10,000 rupees. It's amazing, right? Like this is AI in use in Karachi right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
Yeah.
Like if this is what it takes to convince people to follow the law, then we should use it.
No,
We
absolutely.
should use it everywhere. I mean, I actually believe that one way to have this done is government. I mean, again, not trying to give government any ideas. My family itself will kill me. But the government can mandate every car has a camera on it that's government sanctioned camera. Right? And that camera is utilized for you breaking rules, but everybody else breaking rules. जो वो गलत गाड़ी अंदर लेके आ रहा है, this every camera on every car can capture that and automatically तुमने क्या किया? This is not following the rule. पाकिस्तान की ट्रैफिक कैसे चेंज होगी? अभी तुम सबने देखा है ना? Everybody's wearing seat belts.
Yeah, everyone.
जिसकी गाड़ी में सीट बेल्ट नहीं थी वो भी कोई पता नहीं प्लास्टिक की खरीद के ले आया है to at least look like he has a seat belt on.
सिग्नल पे लोग रुक रहे हैं, सब लोग वो कर रहे हैं. It has
So
just
we can change Pakistani traffic. Absolutely. Right? If our biggest problem becomes कि आप गाड़ी चला रहे हो और बीच में से गाय बकरियां आ रही हैं, we'll be in a good place. Right? Right now our problem is कि मोटरसाइकिल पे औरतें बैठी हुई हैं और वो ऐसे ऐसे चला रहे हैं और गाड़ी वाले ऐसे दबा रहे हैं और एक्सीडेंट्स हो रहे हैं. Like we need to, and that madness. Like by the way, you know, we talk about efficiency. I was talking to a founder yesterday in Karachi. He was talking about efficiency and improvement and this and that. I said, यार सबसे बड़ी efficiency यहाँ की ये है कि change the traffic, right? Probably people spend like good 10-20% of their day sitting in traffic. Like, I'm not just talking about people who are not making a lot of money. Like people who are actually getting paid a lot of money are probably spending, you're probably spending 10-20% of your time sitting in traffic.
yeah.
Right? And you're probably making decisions where to go or not to go entirely based on traffic. वो मीटिंग है यार मैं नहीं जा रहा Zoom पे ही कर लेता है, right? या फिर ये कि maybe you should go meet somebody in person or hang out with somebody or do 5 meetings and you're like यार I don't want to go, मैं ट्रैफिक में कौन बैठेगा, किसी की शादी में जाना है नहीं यार कौन जाएगा, बहुत दूर है.
Sham is the worst.
Right?
Yeah.
Like so you are making decisions every day based on something that can be fixed using AI. Somebody has to just implement it. Dubai में हुआ है ना? Like there's cameras literally everywhere. People go on streets and nobody goes above 120 or 140. Why?
China has like,
And
it's
Flock
insane.
Safety is an amazing company. I mean, it's one of the companies I regret passing on early on. But Flock Safety is cameras that are basically now detecting, preventing significant amounts of crime, or at least solving a lot of crime. Because they basically have cameras everywhere that police has put up. And they basically track your license plates. So अगर आप यहाँ पे चोरी करके निकले, they can track you exactly where you went and when you went. They can track you and find you.
No, that's very interesting. Now let's just talk about Pakistan a bit more. Do you interact with a lot of Pakistani founders? Like, is RedGlass, would RedGlass invest in Pakistan?
So RedGlass has the ability to invest globally. Okay. So with that in mind, sure. The bar is pretty high. And that's not to say that the Pakistani companies are not good. But, just to simply state it, my fund model is, I want to put $3 to $5 million, maybe $7 million into a company. And that company should become worth billions of dollars without requiring a ton of capital, or if a ton of capital at high values, billions of dollars of worth companies, so that I can return an entire fund or two with just one company.
Yeah.
Right? And that is hard to do in Pakistan.
In Pakistan, unless you're doing a global product. Yeah.
Unless you're doing a global product. And I think, as Pakistani companies grow, and I'm sure there's some that will actually hit that mark, but it's hard to tell how, right? Like you need to have, the heuristics are not there yet, and we need to get there. And I think we only need a few success stories. Like you think of the success story of Kareem that, obviously Mudassir was Pakistani, even though the company was mostly based in Dubai, but it doesn't matter. That created an entire tech ecosystem and venture capital ecosystem here, right? So if you had another 2-3 success stories, you will attract a ton of people to look at. I mean, there's a lot of things that are going well for the country, but there's a lot of things that are also not going well for the country. I mean, you have significant population. The population is relatively westernized in at least their likes and dislikes, right? I mean, we all like shampoos and conditioners and cars and
Pizzas
whatever,
and
right?
burgers and matchas now.
Exactly, yeah, matchas and Spanish lattes or whatever the hell. And at the same time, there's also like, there's a sense of pride in Pakistan, right? Like people don't dislike Pakistani products. Pakistan has had a history of whether textiles mein ho, garments mein ho, medical products or whatever. But, when you don't invest in them, eventually you get beat out. Pakistani hockey team used to be the best in the world. And then we stopped investing in it. हमने कहा वो talent से ही आगे आ जाएंगे, right? And the game changed, right? And there's little hope right now. Now, it can be changed, right? I mean, we can learn that game. And we can again become good at it if we motivate everybody, yeah, this is our national sport, we got to play it. But we didn't. And I think the same thing applies to every sport, right? Egypt is now the squash champion because they really put an effort into it.
Yeah.
Right? I think the same thing applies for tech. You got to put real effort into it. It can be, like I always say Pakistan got a Nobel Prize in Abdus Salam, who's a hero, in my opinion, of Pakistan. We got the Nobel Prize a little bit in spite of Pakistan.
Yeah.
Right. And so the founders that are succeeding feels a little bit like they're kind of doing it in spite of Pakistan.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that Pakistan is making them. I mean, ठीक है, जब वो successful हो जाएंगे, just like I would also do it. I'll devote my success to my teachers from St. Patrick's High School and everything that this country did for me. But also, there's a lot of things that the country did not do for me. Right. Yeah. And I'm sure the same thing for them now. I'm an old guy. Like the next generation shouldn't have to deal with that. The next generation should have the country pushing it forward. And I think it's possible. And I think there's people doing good work and trying to get that to happen. I've met a lot of VCs from here who are traveling abroad. I've met a lot of founders. There's, work that people like Ali Fahad and others are doing with the Park Lawns. There's, Bilal bin Saqib, who's going around doing a lot of work and trying to promote AI and crypto. And of course, in Pakistan, mein jo bhi kaam karega, usko 10 people will like him and 10 people will dislike him, and all that is drama. The important thing is there are people who are putting in the effort. We need to figure out institutionally how do we do this. We need to get smart about it. वो धावा बोल देने से काम नहीं होगा, right? वो जो होता था ना कि अगर आपके घर में इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं आ रही है पिछले 2 दिन से और कराची इलेक्ट्रिक का ट्रक आया है, तो लोग उसके ऊपर आ जाते थे, उसको पत्थर मारे, अरे उसका क्या, वो क्या करेगा, right? Like that is not the way to solve your problem. Like if you want to systematically solve the problem, you got to go figure out how to complain against K Electric, how to rally against that, protest against that, जो भी है, do it strategically. उस K Electric के ट्रक को जलाने से तुम्हारी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं आ जाएगी ना. That I think is what we have to do, and the opportunity set is humongous, right? Like the reason I am focused on physical AI is because these are massive industries. This is what's really driving the world, right? Like, आप electricity बंद कर दो, all your autonomy stops.
Yeah.
Right? I'm relatively unproductive because no matter how much I tell my brother to improve his internet and he keeps doing it, half the time there's no internet at home or it's very choppy, right? So all of these things can be improved. In physical AI, these, think of your industrials and manufacturing and automotive and stuff. To innovate in those industries in the past, it used to require somebody of the likes of Elon Musk, right? Somebody who's absolutely crazy, who's willing to take a very capital intensive, challenge and work on it. Somebody who's willing to work in a product that will be low margin product, right? Cars sell for whatever, 10, 20, 30% margins, right? Not 80% profit margin software businesses. And that needs to take a long time to develop. Like if you want to develop a car today, you can't build a product in 6 months and sell it, right? Like you decide to build a car, you will have to first hire them people, put the design together, engineering together, uski kya electric power kahan hai, ye hai, wo hai, supply chain kahan hai, you'll go to China, start to sourcing supply chain, factory lagaoge, uske paise leke aoge, वगैरह वगैरह. It'll be like 5 years before your first car rolls out if you're lucky. Right? So you have to be sustained for 5 years. You have to have the ability to raise money to survive that long at a pretty high burn rate. Now what AI is doing is it's changing that.
This episode is brought to you by Kiss Bazaar. Kiss Bazaar is the leading BNPL platform of Pakistan. वहाँ पे जाके आप अपने लिए installments पे काफ़ी सारे products ले सकते हैं, चाहे आप freelancer हो, एक early professional हो या entrepreneur हो. आप अपनी startup के लिए अपने लिए ACs, TV, fridge, phones, laptop, electric bikes, whatever it is, आप अपने लिए easy installments पे ले सकते हैं. So please go check out www.kissbazaar.pk. Which part of it is AI changing? Like your burn rate is lower and your
AI is changing that the kind of companies you can build are different. Like, you could be sitting here thinking, yaar, how can I import a Chinese car? And how can I put my AI on top of it to make it more autonomous if I want to build an autonomous car? I don't have to build a car from the beginning, right? The first Tesla car was a Lotus car. He took a Lotus car, ripped out the engine and put the batteries, motors and batteries in there and said, this is my Tesla. Well, he didn't have to build the full car. He, as an entrepreneur, you hack it, right? Model S, in my opinion, was the first car that he built. That was his own. Roadster wasn't. Now what is happening is people are saying, I can now, number one, you can attract people that are more fast-paced, Silicon Valley type entrepreneurs. Even in Pakistan, there are Silicon Valley type entrepreneurs who are like move fast, break things, hack at things, code away, prototype away fast. They're not looking for a job. They're not career guys. They're just builders. Like, just go. Right? So you're attracting a different kind of people to work in industries that they previously couldn't. Previously, वो जाते थे कि food panda बना दिया वगैरह वगैरह. They wanted to do some consumer stuff to get some quick, right? Now they're like, hey, I can do this too. This can be quick, right? Second thing, you're building a company that does not require that much capital. Right? Long term, it might to scale, but you can actually get to revenues and get to some kind of a product market fit much sooner. So it is more interesting for investors to say, yaar, it's not a 5-year bet. Let's do it. In 2 years, we will know, okay, ho raha hai, nahi ho raha. I'm willing to take a risk that this may not work out, but I want to know sooner rather than, 10 million and 5 years later. Third thing is you can now build products that are higher margin products. Uber has a higher margin than the car companies. Tesla has a higher margin than other companies, right? But you can, if you have, a company like Applied Intuition, which is built by a Pakistani called Khaisar Yunus. I mean, that has an 80-85% gross margin business, a software business. It's a massive business, serves everybody in the world.
What does Applied Intuition do?
Applied Intuition provides software for the automotive industry, for especially around autonomy and automotive and defense and other industries.
Cool.
But it's basically saying, okay, if you are a car company and you're building your autonomous stack, there's a lot of things you need to do in here that you're not very good at. Let us do that. Let us build the software stack for you. And they started with tools and eventually they're building more and more and now they provide full systems. So a Pakistani entrepreneur sitting here doesn't have to say, yaar, the first thing I need to do is build a car. You might say, let me go do something different. Let me put a layer of software on top of it. It doesn't even have to be consumer facing. It could be enterprise facing. Right?
Yeah. Just basically need to understand the value chain really well and then figure out where in the value chain can you just build your own or capture some of that value. Yeah.
You might sit here and say, yaar, online car sales.
Yeah.
Right? Used car sales.
Yeah.
All of these things are opportunities, but you can go further in the tech stack that's more complex. And as I said, you can start saying, look, let me build an autonomous system for something. Like you may start with a rickshaw system that's autonomous. Like I'm not suggesting, I have no idea, but the point is, if that's a cheaper vehicle for you to buy and work with, why not?
Yeah.
Right? And you might start with, testing, playing, and you might say, I'll run my own system. एक सड़क पे चलेगी यहाँ से वहाँ तक, and then you go forward with that.
Last couple of questions, by the way. I'm also mindful of our time. Do you think the founders who go and build hardware or say autonomy companies, do they need to be some different kind of people than your founders that are just building, say, for example, SaaS?
No, I don't think they need to be different, but I think they tend to be more mission driven, and they tend to have the idea of, I really want to build a company. They're not doing this to make quick money.
Because it's not easy. Like hardware is just for some reason so much more difficult because you have physical things and physical things that you actually need to ship.
Yeah, it's harder, but it's more satisfying, and it's, if you succeed, then it's much more lasting. Right? Like if you want to build a business, I want to quickly build something and sell something, sure. Yeah, it's like
कुछ भी quick नहीं होता. हर चीज में time तो लगता है.
मैं high school में था. I don't think I could have pointed at anybody in my class and say कि ये PhD करेगा और ये MBA करेगा और ये जाके अपना ठेला लगाएगा. I couldn't have said that. I don't think anybody in that class would have pointed at me in my own class at St. Patrick's and said, this is the guy who's going to go to a PhD with a Nobel laureate at MIT. वो तो वहीं पे भी ये नहीं कर ही नहीं सकता. My own high school A-levels teacher wrote in my own book, not fit to do chemistry. Lovely guy. He thought I was just not good at chemistry. And I ended up doing a PhD in chemistry. And after that, would they have said then I would take a right turn and I would end up becoming a venture capitalist? No. But these things happen. So the same way, you can't tell कि यार ये जो बंदा है ये सिर्फ ये सॉफ्टवेयर ही कर सकता है, हार्डवेयर नहीं कर सकता. Elon Musk was a software guy until he became a hardware guy. He was a physics undergrad and he went into software to make quick bucks, and he made quick bucks, and he's like, now I want to do something more interesting. Right? Google is the company that's doing Waymo.
Yeah.
Right? And by the way, Uber tried to do autonomous car system and couldn't. Right? So I don't think we need to say that hardware is hard, but startups are hard. You're starting a Pakistani restaurant and making that successful is very hard.
Yeah.
Right? So when I always tell founders is, if you're going to do something hard, you might as well do something that matters. Right? Warna to sab, unfortunately, when I come to Pakistan, a lot of relatives जो होते हैं वो कहते हैं कि यार यहाँ स्कूल में पैसे लगा दो, स्कूल बना दो, या रियल स्टेट ले लो, या रेस्टोरेंट खोल लो, इसमें पैसे हैं. What are you talking about? I'm sure they know better than me. I'm sure they're right.
Yeah.
But that's like, Silicon Valley में सब कहेंगे यार Indian restaurant खोलो. Like there's a demand for Indian food. या Yemeni cafe खोल लो. Right? But that's not what Silicon Valley is about. That's not where innovation comes from. Like you want to build something lasting. You want to go in and say, I built this, I'm going to make money doing this. So of course you want to be successful and you think through how to do it. But you aspire to build something that would be meaningful to you and to your community and for a long time to come. I have a feeling that before, forget AI and stuff, कि यार पुराने ज़माने में जो लोग companies बनाते थे, they used to think that way. Right? जो अभी जो बड़े businesses हैं, they didn't start off कि मैं पहले ये करूँगा कि परी बिल्डिंग लूँगा, उसमें मैं अपना दफ्तर लगाऊँगा जिसमें बेहतरीन मेरा सोफ़ा होगा, फिर मैं अपना काम शुरू करूँ. Right? पुराने ज़माने के जो लोग जब बड़े बड़े businesses हैं, they all started off maybe 50-70 years ago जब पाकिस्तान बना था, छोटे छोटे से काम, ये ढाबा यहाँ लगा लिया, यहाँ गाड़ियाँ बेचनी शुरू कर दी, या ये कर लिया, वो कर लिया, right? Like this is how it was. And some of the people who were smarter went and got advanced technology. Like I'm a big fan of, and I've been fortunate to be, close to Sayyid Babar Ali for a number of decades. I mean, when you read his biography, and you read, in 1950s mein they decided that the way to bring technology here is not to steal technology and bring it, is to partner with them, whether was Swedish ho ya jo bhi ho, so that those guys are vested in the success of this company. And when they develop new technologies, they give some of that to us so that we can continue to improve. That is the way to do this. Right? In other areas, we didn't do that, and that's a problem. Right? One of the biggest worries I have, I was talking to a Pakistani maybe a year ago or something. One of the problems is that when I was in Pakistan, there used to be a lot of multinationals here. Right? Bhala wo hotels ho ya kuch, so people used to learn from them. Like if you worked at a big multinational bank, you would learn banking, and then you would go become a senior executive at a Pakistani bank and bring all that knowledge, know-how, relationships to that. But if you don't have that now, then you're not learning. Right? How do you know what the rest of the world is doing and how do you compete with them? And I think we have to encourage that. So Pakistan, where there's a lot of talent, and the world is moving in a direction where innovation is happening more distributed ways.
That's exactly right.
Nobody in Pakistan is dying to buy a GM or even a Honda, right? Like everybody talks about the Chinese cars.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I mean, some enterprising Pakistani should go there and say, instead of just importing them, can we partner with you? Can we create a Pakistani, Chinese, it'll be a third tier car. You may not get the BYD and you may not get the Changan or whatever, जो भी brand है, लेकिन कोई तो होगा. कि हाँ यार, हम तो पाकिस्तान में हमारे पास, there's some company in China, there's hundreds of companies, some company in China will say, we have no other way of going to Pakistan, but through you, we can do it. ठीक है, some people will just go and build the dealership and just sell the Chinese car, but somebody else will say, I will actually bring that technology here so that we can do it here.
I mean, we could really use a 1 million rupee car, right? Because there's no longer any car that you can really truly buy a new car for 1 million rupees. अब तो मतलब decent गाड़ियाँ आपकी 5 million onwards, 6 million onwards शुरू होती हैं. So yeah, so like that 1 million rupee car I think would be a game changer for quite a few people, and the way we are going ahead. Other than that, in climate, do you think what kind of technologies can we benefit from?
In climate?
Like, especially like climate adaptation, right? Because it's
There's
getting
a
so
lot of
hot.
stuff, right? Like, I mean, and I think we don't have to invent shit. People are doing it. Like, there's a lot of climate modification stuff that's going on, right? Like, I mean, even Dubai and UAE is doing a lot of like, artificial rain generation and stuff. We should be looking into that technology ourselves for sure. You have to do it carefully and right, but certainly we can benefit from that. Like, हम जैसे सैलाब आते हैं, बारिशें होती हैं, इतनी बारिशें होती हैं कि there's no control over it. You gotta control it.
I mean, we're most
like, 50 years ago we built dams.
Yeah,
right? That was our way to control the floods, right? Why can't we do that again? Why can't we now, take the clouds somewhere else, or instead of all of it coming down in one time, a little bit at a time.
All of that is possible.
All of that is becoming possible, right? And the fact that nobody else is really already doing it, it's like better for us to be able to say we should be doing work in that regard, right? I think there's a lot of work happening in satellite connectivity, right? Like, we should be doing more of that. Like, we should be figuring out whether it's partnership with Starlink and all that's a different issue, or maybe with China or something. Instead of मैं जहाँ जाता हूँ wires कहीं लगी हुई हैं, connection आ रहे हैं, Wi-Fi के ये वगैरह, just give the whole damn country internet connectivity. Put satellites in space, build your satellite industry along the way, and partner with somebody. And you say, look, we're going to give satellite connectivity to people. We're going to get rid of this land-based infrastructure entirely if we can. Possible. Why not? There's also, I think housing is a real problem.
Yeah.
People need places to live, right? And the infrastructure is not matching up. Like, I think we need to get to more distributed infrastructure, especially in our cities. Like, we need to figure out everything that we do that was centralized, we need to make it distributed. We need to figure out how do we have, traffic that, smaller vehicles traveling from place A to place B. We need, there's a lot of things that can be done. The problem that happens is everything, we don't take action until we say this has to be centrally done. And then it becomes somebody else's problem. Government kyun nahi kar rahi? Right? Like, I'll give you a simple example, and I'm not, suggesting that this is doable, but founders and entrepreneurs don't think of things that are very practical. They think of things that are aspirational. A part of my family, relatives, live in this area called Safura. Safura Road.
Yeah.
University Road jo hai, it's been dug up for at least the last few years in the name of trying to do something about the transportation. And everybody I talk to, ke agle 4-5 saal tak bhi kuch nahi hota. This is going to remain like that, right?
No.
People who live there, who work in, kahin pe bhi kaam kar rahe ho, tower वगैरह पे, it takes 2 hours to get back home. 2 hours of productive guy मोटरसाइकिल पे बैठा हुआ है या गाड़ी में बैठा हुआ है, right? पेट्रोल भी बर्न हो रहा है, पोल्यूशन भी आ रही है, धूल मट्टी भी है, बीमारियां भी हो रही हैं उसकी वजह से, सबको RSV हुआ है, सब खांस रहे हैं, एक दूसरे को दे रहे हैं, सब कुछ हो रहा है. Massive cost, but nobody cares about it. In the sense that गवर्नमेंट की प्रॉब्लम है, गालियां देंगे गवर्नमेंट को, right? कोई ये नहीं करेगा कि यार लोकल बिजनेसेस हैं, जो बिल्डिंग्स हैं वगैरह वगैरह हैं, कि यार भाड़ में गई गवर्नमेंट. We're going to hire a tractor. I'm going to clear the shit out. जो गवर्नमेंट ने अपनी ग्रिल लगाई भी अंदर, उसमें तो नहीं जा सकते ना, लेकिन जो बाहर ड्रामा हुआ है, clear the shit out. Right? We're gonna, ठीक है, हम अपनी रोड डाल देंगे, करो क्या करें. Right? Nobody will do that. Nobody will coordinate that. किसी और की प्रॉब्लम. पाकिस्तान में भी जब ऊपर नहीं आई थी, somebody else's problem. कि रिक्शा हैं, ट्रक हैं, गाड़ियां हैं, तेज चलाते हैं, लोगों को मार देते हैं.
Yeah.
And then now all the buses are gone. Right? And people take Uber, Lyft, rickshaw, whatever. Changchi है क्या है वो?
Changchi.
Yeah. So people create their own solutions, and that's what I think we need to do. We need to think about those kinds of ways of solving the problem, even for bigger problems.
Do you think there's a lack of agency generally, or growing up in Pakistan?
100%. पूरे कल रात 2 घंटे मैंने एक कजन से यही बात की है. वो कभी इसको गाली दे रहा है, कभी इसको गाली दे रहा है, कभी ये साले काफिर हैं, कभी ये. Yes, stop. It's fine. Maybe everybody is corrupt. Probably everybody is corrupt. But you still have to live here, right? Like, you still have to solve your problems. Go solve your problems.
No, I agree with that, right? To quite an extent.
And I think if you go back in time, this is how societies have always evolved. And I see people still doing that. Here's the problem. This is happening in the US as well, and I talk about it. वहाँ पे billionaires की problem है, यहाँ पे अमीर लोगों की problem है. When people privatize their life, they stop worrying about everybody else. Right? तो अमीरों ने क्या किया अमेरिका में? I'll use that, and everything of that applies here. बच्चे उनके जाते हैं प्राइवेट स्कूल में. गाड़ियाँ उन्होंने ली हुई हैं बड़ी बड़ी जिसमें they can even sleep in their car if they had to on the way, right? They have drivers so they don't worry about the traffic so much, right? इंटरनेट उनका प्राइवेट सैटेलाइट इंटरनेट आ रहा है, right? They don't care कि Comcast की कनेक्टिविटी क्या है वगैरह वगैरह, right? So they don't care. So when they want lower taxes, कुछ नहीं करो ये वगैरह वगैरह, right? But what about the ordinary person? They think of ordinary people as a burden on them. When the reality is कि ordinary people in democracy, that is the country.
Yeah.
Right? So यहाँ पे तो और भी ज़्यादा हुआ है ना ये.
हाँ,
right?
बहुत ज़्यादा है.
यहाँ उन्होंने इतनी बड़ी गाड़ियाँ ली हुई हैं कि किसी को टक्कर मारो तो उसकी गाड़ी का कबाड़ा हो जाएगा. इसलिए ली हुई हैं. Right? और चलती हैं वो और दो गाड़ियाँ उनके पीछे हाइलक्स में और गन लेके बैठे हुए होते हैं कि और डराने धमकाने के लिए कि पैं से तो लोग नहीं हटेंगे, लेकिन कोई गन देखेगा बड़ी गाड़ी आ रही है तो साइड में हटाएंगे. Right? But what are they doing? They're destroying the infrastructure. They're taking agency away from people. People are like, yaar, kare do jo karna. Right? That is a real problem. How do you change that? In the midst of that, how are you going to keep the smartest person in Pakistan building? When I'm willing to pay his ticket and I say, aa jao, Silicon Valley aa jao. Why would that person stay here? दिमाग खराब हुआ उसका. अगर उसके वालिदैन बुढ़े नहीं है या वो ज़्यादा रिलीजियस नहीं है तो क्यों रहेगा यहाँ? That is what we need to change. And by the way, that is doable. एक तो हमारे पास लोग बहुत हैं.
हाँ, बहुत लोग हैं.
The second thing is that they're actually smart, probably genetically, but also motivated to study. Like अभी काफी खानदानों में है कि you should study, you should go to college
course,
and whatnot, right? And somehow we're also not very welcome in the rest of the world.
We're
So
not.
that makes it difficult. So that's an opportunity for us. But we have to grab that opportunity as quickly as we can. So we can't be left behind. The pace of development in every technology is really accelerating. I'm sure here about companies going from 0 to 100 million in revenues like this, right? वो जो हो रहा है, this is leaving the rest of the countries behind. The way things are developing is so fast, it's becoming harder and harder to catch up. It's a little bit like कि जब सब government school में हुआ करते थे, then the best student in the school was only that much better than the worst student in the school. जब private school आ गए पाकिस्तान में, so then the best student in a private school is like जो गरीब बच्चा मुश्किल से प्राइमरी जमात में enroll हुआ है, compete कर ही नहीं सकता था private school के student से, जो O level, A level कर रहा है, right? And now it's gone to the next level. And the technology is doing exactly the same thing. We have to really figure out how we jump onto that bandwagon and catch up. And I think there's enough people working on it. Like that's why I'm even having this conversation. This is not a conversation one can have right now in Afghanistan or something.
Yeah.
But people are really working on it, and we need to show them that you have to empower the people to do this. You have to have central organization and all that. I'm not taking anything away from that. But you also need to empower people to go build. The fact that nobody takes action is a problem. हम जिस घर में बैठे हैं उसके बाहर की सड़क आप देखें.
Yeah.
Right? Why isn't that fixed? Everybody's saying somebody किसी और की प्रॉब्लम है. सब बुरा भला तो कहेंगे, लेकिन why जो 8 घर हैं जो यहाँ हैं, why aren't they just getting together and saying fix it? तुम्हारे घर का बाथरूम खराब होता है, तुम खुद साफ करते हो ना उसको, fix करते हो.
Absolutely.
Why can't you do that outside? Because we've said it's somebody else's problem.
Yeah.
And frankly, it is somebody else's problem. We pay taxes for that and all that. Lekin, how long are we willing to tolerate that on our own before we say we go fix it ourselves? That is what we have to do. पाकिस्तान में टीवी नहीं आ रहा था तो लोगों ने कहा इंटरनेट की डिशेस खरीद लो, इंटरनेट कह रहा हूँ, सैटेलाइट की डिशेस खरीद लो.
Yeah.
तो पाकिस्तान में खाली पीटीवी आता था, राइट? जब डिश आ गई और लोगों ने हैक किया ना, डिश खरीदी, उसमें वो लगाया, सर्वर लगाया, उसमें डिकोडर लगाया, सडनली सारे इंडिया के टीवी आने शुरू हो गए. तो गेस व्हाट, पाकिस्तानी टीवी इंडस्ट्री कंप्लीटली चेंज्ड. हर किस्म के चैनल आ गए, वो डिश चली गई, केबल सिस्टम आ गया, कुंडा सिस्टम था बेसिकली, वो केबल हर एक लिटरली घर में आके केबल डाल रहे थे. लाइक देयर वाज नो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर फॉर इट, राइट? बट इट चेंज्ड एवरीथिंग. लाइक I grew up in this country where there was only PTV. फिर आया NTM आया और फिर PTV2 पता नहीं क्या क्या, and then suddenly one day just before 2 years before I left we had MTV and this and that because हमने डिश लगवा ली थी, right? The generation that's growing up now इतने टीवी चैनल है कि तो देखते ही नहीं है, वो तो just like YouTube पे चले जाओ.
हाँ, YouTube, Netflix,
Right?
HBO and all.
And that's just in my life, right? And it happened because somebody hacked it. Some entrepreneur was like कि यार मैं डिश खरीद लो, 5,000 10,000 की आती थी मेरे ख्याल से उस वक्त, वो खरीद लो, सारी अमीरों के पास होती थी. हमने भी 1-2 साल इंतजार किया जब किसी को राजी किया अब्बू को कि भाई पैसे दे दो.
हाँ.
But once we got it, it changed our lives. Then MTV went from something I didn't know to by the time I went to the US, I knew all the songs that they were playing in the US. It was an entrepreneur doing it. The same thing can happen now. It doesn't need to be dish antenna. It may be streets on the around the block. Go fix it. Power. Like लोगों ने किया है ना, सोलर आ गए लोगों के घरों के ऊपर. गवर्नमेंट ने तो नहीं कहा ना कि सोलर करो, खुद ही किए. प्रॉब्लम इतनी हो गई कि they said I'm going to now, pardon my French, but I'm going to fucking solve this problem.
Yeah.
Right? Enough. 25, 30, 40 साल से हम कंप्लेन कर रहे हैं कि ये CEO कराची इलेक्ट्रिक हमें नहीं दे रही पावर, screw it, I'll just put my own solar on. And now it's happening. I mean, more and more people are doing it, and obviously...
Yeah, it's also made it accessible. Someone somewhere changed the infrastructure where you can generate electricity through your solar and sell it to the government and make your electricity cost zero, pretty much, etc. So yeah, I completely agree with that, right? लेकिन अगर मैं, for example, एक टेक्नोलॉजी के फ्रंटियर पे काम करना चाह रहा हूँ, there's very few places in the world that would be ideal places for it, right? So wouldn't you agree, like for example, if like Silicon Valley is just a unique place, even in the US,
yeah,
like people would even move from New York to go and like build a company there because it just offers you something that nowhere else in the world will offer you, right? Like would you agree with that sentiment? And what kind of people should most definitely be in Silicon Valley in your opinion, because they can't get the same place anywhere else?
Yeah, Silicon Valley is a network.
Network, yeah.
And it's about being close to that network and meeting everybody and finding resources from the other people in the network that you can utilize, getting advice from people in very, fast iterative loops. It's also a mindset. And I think if you go away from the mindset, the more not just isolated, but petrified you become. You talked about the sense of agency. Your sense of agency goes away. Silicon Valley has a little bit more of a sense of agency. I can do this. I can build a, space company and take it to Mars and take over NASA and all that.
More receptive to failure?
Sure. Absolutely. Thinking big, accepting failure, iterating, paying it forward, right? There's a bunch of things, and I'm not idolizing it. There's a lot of things that are also not very good and could improve. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done anywhere else. And it doesn't mean that, you cannot utilize Silicon Valley to your advantage while being somewhere else. When I started my fund, my first investment was in New York, even though I'm in Silicon Valley. My second investment is in LA. Right? So, doesn't matter. I mean, I've made 5 investments. The others are in Silicon Valley, but still. That's just how it is. Like some of the biggest defense tech companies are not in Silicon Valley. They're actually in LA or in other places, right? So it's not necessary to do that, to be in Silicon Valley. But yes, it's like you can be a great university in Pakistan, but to be a great university in Pakistan, you should probably have the ability to have fully network into what's happening at MIT, Stanford, Caltech, Oxford, Cambridge, whatever. Like you can't be like, you don't have access to the libraries, you don't have access to the papers, so university bana do ya. Aise kaise hoga? It's petrified knowledge.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you bring the world's best scientists here, eventually their utility function declines. Right? So you have to give them the ability to keep growing. But kafi dost hain jo they came back to Pakistan and they built businesses, and the thing they most complain about is 2 things, right? It's not even the roads and stuff. The things they complain about, one, they feel their ambition has been put guardrails around, right? I think मैं change करूँगा, और अब हो गया कि यार restaurant बना लेते हैं, बड़े पैसे हैं उसमें, right? So they feel that their ambition. The second is intellectual discourse. And they feel like मैं TV खोलता हूँ यहाँ पे, because I don't get Pakistani TV there very much. So when I come here, to my parents' horror.
Yeah.
I go through the local TVs. Every channel either has a romantic drama playing, or it has, most channels just buck ho rahi hai on politics,
Yeah.
right? Nothing against that. Maybe people here enjoy that.
I'm sure that's why they're here on TV here.
But sometimes it's not because they're there for that reason. Sometimes because nobody has thought of an alternative and tried to do it. Right? Somebody created Sesame Street back in the US. It wasn't a thing. Right? It wasn't always a thing. Somebody created Disney. Yaar, cartoon animation banate hain.
Yeah.
And it changed the world.
So यहाँ पे permissionless media is YouTube, right? So digital, where people like me, I'm sick of political conversation. So I wanted, like, when I started like a year and a half ago, it was just, even on YouTube, all conversation was either on macroeconomic stuff, which macroeconomy, of course, also seems so far off, right? You're like, I can't do anything about any of this. And all of this is so up in the air. And I just felt like there's not enough microeconomic conversations which are more relevant and apply to me, right? And apply to the industries that I would want to build in or service to, etc. So the only permissionless media is YouTube, where I just need few cameras, a couple of mics, a little bit of investment, and just start having conversations with people like you, right?
Is anybody here doing podcasts on local businesses? And I don't mean businesses कि आपका कैसा business चल रहा है, आप कैसे, like this interview, कैसे आए, जहाँ आए.
Yeah.
But no, let's go into a factory, Millet Tractor.
No one's doing, so part of our podcast, most episodes are multi-guest. So we have 3 guests from an industry and we talk about that industry. And less about the person as such. Some of the one-on-one ones where that person hasn't done any other Pakistani podcast like yourself, we get you to share some of your backstory as well. And varna, doing a profile on a particular company, that's something I want to do, but I haven't really gotten into.
No, I'm not suggesting that you need to do that. But, if you're a young college student, you're Karachi University में या NED में आप engineering कर रहे हैं, mechanical engineering second year, right? तो आप ऑनलाइन जाके देख सकते हैं कि टेस्ला फैक्ट्री टूर, राइट? यू कैन सी कि ये ऐसे रोबोट बनते हैं, ये करते हैं, ये कर रहे हैं वगैरह वगैरह. बट यू हैव नो आइडिया कि पाकिस्तान में क्या हो रहा है. यू हैव नो आइडिया कि पाकिस्तान में कैसे हो रहा है, राइट? यू टेक योर मोटरसाइकिल एंड यू नो कि पंक्चर कैसे सही करवाता है, राइट? बट यू हैव नो आइडिया कि इस मोटरसाइकिल बनती कैसे है. पाकिस्तान में मोटरसाइकिल बन रही है ना,
बन रही है, बिल्कुल.
उसके कोई टूर होता है, उसकी किसी ने वीडियो बनाई है कि जो ऑनलाइन अवेलेबल हो, कैसे होती है? Is there somebody who says कि यार ये हमारी प्रॉब्लम है, हमारे इतने पैसे ज़ाया हो जाते हैं बिकॉज हमारे जो फ्यूल पंप है, ये जो टेक्नोलॉजी है बहुत पुरानी है, राइट? और somebody else says कि यार ये इसको हम कैसे डिजिटाइज इलेक्ट्रीफाइड कैसे करें, ये हमारी प्रॉब्लम है. या कोई स्टार्टअप हो जो कहे कि ये नहीं कि मैंने इतने पैसे बनाए और ये किया वो किया, या ये मैं प्रॉब्लम कर रहा हूँ, अपनी मार्केटिंग भी करेंगे, लेकिन somebody comes and says कि यार हमारे पास बैटरी सिस्टम्स नहीं है, ये बैटरी सिस्टम बनाओ. लाइक पाकिस्तानीज़ आर वेरी इंजेन्युअस, राइट? हर घर में वो बैटरी लगी हुई होती है गाड़ी घर चलाने के लिए, राइट? ओ बिल्कुल, इट्स अ टोटल हैक, राइट? हाफ ऑफ देम प्रोबब्ली आर ससेप्टेबल टू कैचिंग फायर. किसी इलेक्ट्रिशियन ने यहाँ के वहाँ कनेक्शन लगा दिया, वो कर दिया, ये लिथियम बैटरी है, ये वो वाली बैटरी है. सो होम बिल्ड सिस्टम. Why? Because वो ज़रूरत एजाद की माँ होती है ना, वो वाला काम किया हुआ है. But if somebody was to say कि यार ये ऐसे बनती है, and here's the other technologies around it that you might want to learn about. Here's how you can put a monitoring system on it, balancing system on it. Here's how you can increase that. Solar कैसे install करते हैं, उसकी improvement करो. होता ये है कि एक बंदा लेके आता है कि मैंने यार जो पहले बंदा आया मैंने सोलर लगाया, राइट? उसके बाद कमोडिटाइजेशन जब होती है तो टेक्नोलॉजी एडवांसमेंट्स डिले हो जाती है और बेसिकली होता है कैसे सस्ते से सस्ता बेचूं. Right? But what we need to do is that as that is scaling, we need to be telling the next people कि कुछ लोग करेंगे जो सस्ता बेचेंगे और आप कर सकते हैं कि अच्छा बेचो. Right? You can come up with the next iteration on it and do something better.
Yeah, no one's making that content, but so one thing, I was talking to Danish about this, right? I would love to set up an accelerator for content creators in Pakistan, give them a studio, put them some equipment and all, invest some time in them, and be like, listen, whatever you want to make content about, whether it's food, but like stuff that we'll have broad guidelines, right? Stuff that you want to talk about, like let's just create more and more creators, because that's, if you look at avenues for social mobility in Pakistan, there aren't many. Entrepreneurship is the main one, which is still accessible to most people, even from a micro level to a higher level. उसके अलावा content is literally the only other one. Unless आप अरशद नदीम की तरह javelin फेंक सकते हैं, आपके पास वो वाला talent है वगैरह. Sports is a whole different thing, but that requires bigger infrastructure. Content is like the lowest like investment type of situation through which someone's lives can completely change. Like that girl जो I don't know if you've seen that meme party हो रही है, ये मैं हूँ, ये मेरा वो दोस्त है. That one thing changed her life. She's a big actress now.
Yeah, no, I'm all for that, and I think that a society gets what it celebrates. Okay, this is my belief. When I lived in Cambridge, Massachusetts, they celebrated academia and research. They ended up with amazing research institutions, pharmaceutical companies, biotech companies, because they're very research oriented. But they did not celebrate wealth. They did not celebrate, in my opinion, startups as much. When you go to New York, they celebrate wealth.
Yeah.
Right?
They do.
Because they celebrate wealth, right? They don't celebrate intellectual, academia and whatnot, right? So everybody who goes there wants to make money. भला वो hack कर रहा हो सड़क के ऊपर, भला वो hedge fund में काम कर रहा हो. But you go there and people want to know how much money you have and where do you live, and that determines कि आपकी wealth कितनी है and which galas you go. You go to LA, they celebrate beauty and
fame and like a glamour. Yeah.
Right. So that's what you do. When you go there, even if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an entrepreneur in Silicon Valley, you don't drive on McLarens and all that stuff. But if you're an entrepreneur in LA, you're more likely to be driving one of those fancy cars because your looks matter. When you go to Silicon Valley, it is about your startup and technology and so on, right? So you will meet somebody who will look like इसको बेचारे को खाने के पैसे नहीं होंगे, but this guy might be a billionaire who just dresses like whatever, because that's not, आप Sergey Brin से मिलो, Sergey and Larry. I mean, they have islands in other places, but when they're in Silicon Valley, a TV T-shirt, and they're just like whatever. That's what. So Pakistan has to, and even local, Karachi versus Lahore has to figure out what are they, what is it, Agar aap, in Lahore, if it's history and whatnot, or Karachi ke andar, what is it? It's no longer our beach.
Yeah.
What is it? It has to be. It used to be the, this is the commercial capital. This is the, the metropolis that everybody comes to, and all ideas from around the world come here. People from around the world are here. If there's any element of that, we have to celebrate that, to celebrate people who are building.
We also don't celebrate actually wealth. So at some level, I think because it's so unevenly distributed, most people just despise it. And I think it's less to do with distribution and more to do with the fact that you don't even have a shot to access it.
Well, that's the difference, right? Because in all these places that I said, you have a shot to get to whatever they celebrate.
You have the shot, and at least there's a belief and there's a clear hope.
I think there is, but the problem is that people think that the only, we're generalizing obviously, so we have to be careful, but people think that the way to get to that is not through some straight and narrow tasks.
Yeah.
Right? There's ill-gotten wealth.
Yeah.
Sticking to technology, I think you can celebrate technology, right? It is everywhere. The thing that people don't understand. Yet I remember this conversation back in starting 1999 when Musharraf came in, and then, Ataur Rahman and all that stuff. We used to talk to them about physics, biology, mathematics, computer science, and they were like IT. They only wanted to talk about IT, right? And they thought Pakistan's life will change because of IT, right? And yes, a few people became rich, but it did not change Pakistan. IT did not change Pakistan. Pakistan has the same level of IT as like Nigeria.
Yeah, that's correct.
Despite jitna bhi Musharraf ne kiya tha aur Rahman ne kiya, jo bhi kiya, right? So the same thing is a little bit can happen now. कि अगर हम उस पे अटक गए ना AI पे, कि बस AI की ऐप बना दो या कुछ कर दो, we will get stuck again. Because the AI as we see it today will come and go. It'll be a very important wave, but if you don't build in it, just as utilization of AI, ये graphics बना ली, images बना ली, video बना ली, AI से voice कर लिया, and we're just using it to create more content, okay, that will come and go. That was like IT. It'll come and go, right? Right now, double-digit percentage of India's economy is BPO, and that is done.
Yeah.
That's going to zero, right? They're going to lose double-digit percentage of their GDP in the next 2 years. They have to figure out how to fix it and how to. So we have to do the same way that the generation that's here now that's coming up, that's like right now 15, 16, 18, जो पढ़ रही है यहाँ पे, जो यहाँ पे colleges में जा रही है, अपने majors select कर रही है, जिससे मैं बात करता हूँ, कहते हैं या तो computer science या business कर लो. मैं कहा business क्या करोगे यार? What business are you going to do? Like if you're doing computer science, do real computer science, not वो IT वाला computer science. Right?
Which is mostly technician stuff, right? Which is not either, it is not even engineering or research, तो खैर कोई भी नहीं कर रहा. वो engineer भी सही से नहीं है. वो I think it's mostly just being a technician who can do this stuff.
And I think, look, I get it. People, most of Pakistan just needs to make money to be able to pay the bills, right?
Fair enough, yeah.
But we have to create pathways for them to build something that lasts.
Because the aspiration is there. Aspiration to build a great life is 100% there.
Absolutely.
Because especially as someone who's going to university and all, wants a great life, wants to buy a house, wants to do a lot of things. But you're right, like right now, the belief is that I need to leave Pakistan to be able to achieve it. That's number one. Number two, sure, and then they go like, हाँ पाकिस्तान आके पाकिस्तान की मदद करनी है. नॉट पाकिस्तान आके क्योंकि ये मेरे लिए एक वायबल जगह और मार्केट है जहाँ पे मैं वाकई में कुछ खुद के लिए बना सकता हूँ. एंड दैट पार्ट ऑफ होप इज मिसिंग, दैट पार्ट ऑफ क्लैरिटी इज मिसिंग, एंड या बिकॉज दे हैवंट सीन मेनी पीपल डू इट.
देखो इंडिया में 30-40 years ago that was a little bit like that. सब दुबई चलो का वही हो रहा था, राइट? इंडिया में कोई इम्पोर्ट नहीं हो सकती थी चीज़ों की. हम जब I remember going there, you didn't have Coca-Cola, you didn't have Pepsi, you didn't have Suzuki, you didn't have all of that stuff. हम समझते थे हम बड़े VIP लोग हैं, हमें तो हर चीज़ मिलती है दुनिया भर की. But what they were doing was they were building their ecosystem internally to be able to produce something. And when their economy opened, everybody and their mother came in to be able to build, right? We have a moment right now where it feels like there's a bunch of things happening. One, there's an interest in Pakistan globally, and not just about the political. It's about kya ho raha hai, whether it's through the military sales that we're doing or whether it's, United States is actually, it tussles with India because it realizes that China, US ki jo war hai, wo to China economically, in my opinion, jeet jayega. The war is really going on, ke second place pe kaun aayega? Is it going to be India or the US? And in that, they're trying to push India down and Pakistan ka dost ban gaya, right? And there's a lot of complexity and all that's going on there, but there's a little bit of that happening. Right? Pakistan is an opportunity to align itself, with the Middle East, with the US, and say, yeah, we want to do this. We want to have a data center here. We want to have, our people who are available to be working in those fields. We want to be able to import Chinese cars, but we want to be able to build and not just build as in manufacturing, but we want to improve upon Chinese cars here. How can we have software development houses built here that are, हम China car import करना चाह रहे हैं, लेकिन you have to have some development centers that are built here around the software that's developing for those cars. Like, that is the kind of thing that then somebody out of that ecosystem will emerge and say कि मैं अपनी car company बनाता हूँ. बड़ा वो 3-wheeler ही हो, I'm gonna बनाऊँगा. Like that, if you start celebrating that stuff, good things will happen. And I'm just a builder and supporter of those things. When I see people who are taking those types of steps, I think interesting things happen. There's more people who are now capable of doing more things because of AI, and we need to enable that to happen rather than more people doing fewer things. Like go MRI machines, go find cheaper ways to get an MRI machine, build an MRI machine locally, because now you can have a less accurate MRI machine, but use AI to maybe fix up some of the data that's coming out of there, right? Use ultrasound systems to do diagnostics, and build systems around that. Dentistry, like how do you change dentistry? Like we've gone from Chinese Dandan SaaS and Sadar to now we can have a proper dentist market here because a lot of it is digitized. In fact, one of the top companies in dentistry is actually run by a Pakistani woman in Silicon Valley, right?
Overjet, right?
Yeah. So Warda's company, Overjet, why don't you bring that here and utilize that here? Now, she's not going to do that on her own because she's solving big problems and she's going after the bigger market. But somebody somewhere will be like, hey, Warda, can I license your technology to be used in Pakistan? How do we use that here? And then you completely change that market here, right? We all have to remember we are consumers of all of those same types of things, right? You need dentist help, you need doctor's help. When you get sick, you need medical help. You need an ambulance that should take you and shouldn't look like just darba, right? Like all of those things are needed. How can we fix that? And how can we do that ourselves rather than only relying on centralized infrastructure to happen? That is necessary, and we should completely put pressure on the government to do that. But as you do more of that, it is more likely to happen. I remember back in the day when Align Technologies was among the first companies that came around. Because they were doing interesting things, government bent over backwards for them. Like they were able to take the company public in record time. In fact, the subsequent companies, TRG, had the same benefit of that, right? The government was like, nahi, inko humne protect karna hai. If you do enough momentum, I think you will see support. Going back to your defense tech question in the US, defense tech industry and Silicon Valley defense tech industry was not supported at all. We had to do it on our own. We're like, let's go start building it, right? And then we did enough of it that the government paid attention. And now the government is pushing us. But we had to do the work ourselves. And I really do mean agency is it. I mean, Pakistanis have done amazingly well in Pakistan. Forget about outside. In Pakistan, when they've taken agency, when they opened up private schools, when they decided that satellite dishes lagani hai, when they decided that fast internet hamare gharon mein aana chahiye. All of this was done without government's intervention, really.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks so much, Bilal. Thanks so much. This was actually quite helpful, and I think we got a pretty good outlook from you, even on like mostly Pakistan stuff. And I wasn't expecting as much Urdu, but great stuff, because I think that would.
Urdu A levels mein bhi aaya tha. I know. I just speak Urdu.
Zabardast, Excellent. But thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.